Okay. We're going to talk about murders at Karlov Manor today. This is the first of the preview discussion stream. Usually we get 2 of these, maybe a third. Who's to say? I will say before we get into this, I also have a special surprise. We will have a special guest on the stream later today. A brief special guest on the stream later today to help talk about some of these cards. I'm not going to say who. And it really just depends on when they're done their thing. But it'll be good. It'll be fun. Everybody will like it. All right. I'm doing this a slightly different way from when I've done previous discussion streams, because usually I would have a whole elaborate setup and the cockatrice window would be on the... Oh, I gotta censor that now. Window would be on the screen and chat would be on the screen, but we can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. This is what the people want. The people want spontaneity. They want me to just look at the card image gallery. This also lets me do so while cards get updated and like spoiled during the weekend. We can like pivot to talk about them as well, which is kind of fun. Like this is so much easier than the previous one, which is why we're doing it this way. That's why we're doing it this way. If this is your first time watching one of these preview streams, I talk about these cards through the lens of a couple different things. 1, Canadian Highlander. 2, Gladiator. 3, kind of Commander. It's more like if I see a card, it's like, that'd be cool in Commander, which is most cards, I guess, but that can happen. Also, 4, if the card is cool. I just like talking about cool shit. I think there should be more of that. There should be more Magic streams where they just like focus on the cool shit in the game. I gotta boil. It's boiling. My kettle's boiling. I gotta grab the kettle. I gotta grab my kettle. 1 second. I gotta grab my kettle. I'll put the... No, I gotta talk about the rules anyway, so 1 second. All right. Not all the cards have been revealed. Cobalt Bow. No, you haven't missed the rules. All right. So here's how this goes. Shit, what are the rules again? I go through it in Wooburg order. I'll be explicit up at the top whether or not the card I'm talking about is legal in Gladiator or not, because I will be talking about some of the commander cards here. It costs $5 for me to skip a card or go back to a card or talk about a different card in general. Only I may determine queens, which is, you know, you can't just put queen status on something. That has to go through me. The trick is all women are queens, so... But, you know, if it's a different kind of queen, that has to go through me. And then no lab mansplaining. I don't want to talk about extremely niche corner case scenarios. I don't want to argue. I mean, I kind of do, but it's can we name short kings too? What about king status? I mean, we got some king status already. I mean, you don't have a set with a guy that looks like this and not call him king, you know? So yeah. Anywho. Not to jump ahead, but as someone who plays a lot of limited, stapling Ward 2 to every already cracked rare is my least favorite trend. Yeah, but it only has Ward 2 if it's a Scathe Zombies. We'll get to that too. I'll talk about the mechanics as they pop up. They're pretty straightforward, honestly. The cases might not be, but you know. All right. Let's talk about assemble the players. 1 and a white for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. And once each turn, you may cast a creature spell with power 2 or less from the top of your library. I like this card. This is definitely a card that gets a little bit better in like a 60 card format, right? That said, for the Ruin Your Evening equivalent that we have built in Gladiator, this card's a slam dunk. I could even consider playing this in Canlander Ruin Your Evening. It's not quite Future Sight. Like, the strength of Future Sight and Future Sight effects are obviously that, like, you can play any kind of card, but importantly, you get to clear lands off the top of your library. Only casting creatures, and only once each turn means you don't really get to chain. But the fact that this is 2 mana is kind of a pretty strong selling point, right? Like, a lot of the other cards that are kind of in this realm cost 3, even if they're not attached to a creature, right? Like Acacia's Welcome. 2 is pretty nice. 2 means you could just slide it in under the permission decks and maybe start to get something off of this as soon as turn 3. Which is okie dokie. So yeah, I like this card. I think it has more of a home in Gladiator than Canlander. But I'd be interested in testing it out in both the formats. Ceremonial Cowboy for the 25th month. 2 years of watching this guy. Hell yeah. But Ben Wheeler at work, dude? Aurelia's Vindicator. 2 white for a 4/2 angel with flying, lifelink, and ward 2. And it has disguise. The disguise cost is X, 3, and a white. Okay. Our guest is here earlier than usual, chat. Hold on. Our guest is here earlier than usual. Let me get this ready. This is not the perfect setup, but let me get this ready. Wait. The guest isn't here yet. He's still getting out of the car. He's got to grab some stuff from the car. She'll come this way. No. Do I need to go and grab her? No, you know what I mean. All right, hold on. Let me give me a second here. Let's get this guest in here.
What, Ben Wheeler? Abusing magic? Yeah. How dare you? No.
Okay. It's what everybody's been waiting for. It's what everybody's been waiting for. Lenny! Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Hi! Hey! Oh no, Lenny! Sit. Yeah! Lenny, everybody, it's Lenny! Lenny will be back. Lenny will be back. Wordless Rage, welcome back for the 4th month. My wife had this Kadena deck. Lenny will be back. He's a busy man. He's a busy man. He's visiting like all day. So there will be more Lenny. I'll try to get a better shot of his face too. But I did notice on the screen, got a couple of good reaction ones. Where's Lenny? You missed Lenny? All right, tell you what. I'll bring back Lenny one more time. Oh. All right, I'll bring back Lenny one more time. Come here. Oh. Wait. Yeah! Thank you. Now I gotta get a cat. This has been the most chaotic start to a stream in a while.
Ready to have stuff.
Now I gotta take care of Mulder. Because obviously there's a dog in the house. Although Mulder's met Lenny before. Alright. Yeah, hi. Aurelia's Vindicator. Let's start this over again. 2 white for a 4/2 angel with flying lifelink and ward 2, and it has disguise. With disguise cost here being X, 3 and a white. What is disguise, you may ask? It's morph. It's literally morph. However, it has ward 2. Disguise is pay 3 generic, play this card as a 2/2 creature that is colorless, that doesn't have a name, and you can flip it up at any time as a special game action for paying its disguise cost. It's literally morph, but with ward 2. Yeah. So for this one, you'd pay 3 generic, play it face down. It's a 2/2 with ward 2. Oh yeah, maybe I think it's called a mysterious creature or something like that. And then disguise X3 and a white. And it says when Aurelia's Vindicator is turned face up, exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyards. And when Aurelia's Vindicator leaves the battlefield... Oh, they've printed the protection with no name guy? Great. Okay. Then yeah, it's no names. It's no names. When it's turned face up, you exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature from the graveyard. And when it leaves play, you return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. Which is kind of funny. So that's a large cost, right? 5 mana, like 3 up front for the morph. And then 5 mana to be able to exile 1 creature. So that can either rebuy your own creature to your hand in play, protecting it kind of like Glorious Protector, I guess, the Kaldheim Angel, or returning a creature from your graveyard to your hand. I don't know how I feel about this card. There's a chance that these disguise cards are going to be really difficult to evaluate if they are not just cheap themselves. Like a 4 mana 4/2 flyer lifelink with Ward 2 sounds pretty appealing. I mean, it's a 4 power 4 mana flyer with lifelink. And the Ward 2 is like, well, you're not killing me with a shock, right? You're not killing me with a shock unless you pay 3 mana, which is fine. Paying 3 mana to trade with this card. They are going mana positive on this trade, but it's, you know, better than 2. But the thing is, this has this 2 toughness on this flying body in a world with like Fairy Mastermind and Malcolm, and basically any card that happens to have reach can just kill this when it blocks. This dies to all the damage sweepers too, like Brotherhood's End and Anger of the Gods, that kind of thing. It's yeah, I think it's a little too vulnerable for this to see any significant play. But like in the big mana white decks, like if big white ends up playing this or whatever, like I could see that, you know, I could see it. Yeah, dies to Giant Spider, no first strike. Sorry, you mean my decorative vase? My tiny decorative vase? And then the other thing is charging in the... yeah. Don't care about this card. Kind of care about this card. Case of Pilfered Proof. Not this one in particular, but I want to explain what cases are. Because when we first saw cases... This was, it took the power of everybody to figure out how these cards actually work. Because the layout, I mean, you kind of have to work within the constraints of this like saga layout. You know, I guess you can call it. Are you drinking my water? Okay. So they're enchantments. And it says, whenever a detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So that's just an ETB on the case. And then to solve the case, you have to control 3 or more detectives. So in order to solve this case, you got to have 3 or more detectives. And if the case is unsolved, you solve it at the beginning of your end step. So, let's say I play this Case of Pilfered Proof, and I only have 2 detectives. I go to my end step. This case is currently unsolved, and I do not have the requisite, you know, the requirements to solve this case. So it remains unsolved. But if I have 3 detectives and it's in my main phase, I go to my end step and this case was currently not solved, it then becomes solved. And once the case is solved, there are going to be certain triggered abilities that will happen, certain static abilities, that kind of thing. So when this case becomes solved, it now says, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a clue token is created instead. this one does not get solved. This one does not get sacrificed when it gets solved. There may be, I think there's one that's previewed that sacrifices itself that I saw. I don't know. It could be on a case-by-case basis. I think the wording on these cases is kind of miserable. If unsolved, you solve this at the beginning of your end step. Okay? So, let's say I have an unsolved case. And I go to my end step. Like, I just explained it to you. But doesn't it read, that line of text reads like, oh, well, it's unsolved, so I solve it at the beginning of the end step. But you got to have these requirements. I don't know. Thankfully, not a lot of them are that great so far. So far. The rules article says at the beginning of your end step, if the case is unsolved and you met the condition in the middle ability, the case becomes solved. Yeah. There you go. That's how it works. Wendelin, welcome back for the 54th month. Jesus, that's so many months. That's an extremely large amount of months. Have I seen Crime Novelist? I have. I've seen this entire set. Obviously, only talking about the real ones, but if there's a card in this set, I've seen it. Oh, I don't need to talk about this card. We do need to talk about this card. Delny, Streetwise Lookout. 2 and a white for a 2/2 legendary human scout. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. And if an ability a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. This is an interesting one. Twitter wouldn't shut the hell up about this card. I don't know how I feel about it. I think, certainly for Canlander, it's not good enough. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that, while it does allow you to push some damage, that's not like this line of text is not really a selling point to me. This line of text is what the selling point is. But then again, panharmonicons are constantly overvalued. Like even outside of Commander or whatever. Like this whole package is just too vulnerable. 3 mana, technically no ETB, reliant on you having additional cards, right, to get any kind of real value out of it. And it's a 2/2. So I don't think this is doing it for Canlander or Gladiator, frankly. Like, maybe there's like a Soul Sisters deck that pops up in Gladiator, and then you can consider playing this card. I think that's a reasonable slot. But other than that, I'd say this is mostly reserved for Commander. This card is great. Krovod Haunch. 1 white for an artifact. Food equipment. Equip creature gets +2/+0. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice the Haunch to gain 3 life. And whenever Haunch is put into a graveyard from play, you can pay 1 and a white, and if you do, you make 2 dogs. And then this has equip too. I am a sucker for these kind of designs because I think this might be one of the perfect cards. This might be like the perfect encapsulation of this kind of design. 1, the name is funny, but it's very descriptive of what it is. It's funny to read, right? Krovod Haunch. Like, even if you know what Crovods are, it's a funny thing to just like feel like, oh, okay. It's got good mouthfeel. It's a food equipment, which is already appealing because it's what if one card type was also this card type. It's kind of a bone splitter, right? Obviously it costs 2 to equip and it's in white, but people love equipment. People love bone splitters. Obviously you can sack it and gain life, but then you also get to feed it to the dogs, right? When you eat this, you get to throw the remains or the bones to the dogs. You make 2 dogs to chew at the big Crovod bones and scraps. Not to mention, this does so much for storytelling, so much for world building, so much for the case of building Ravnica as just like a place where people live, which is always cool to me. I enjoy that, where it's just like, oh, you know, if you don't know a lot about Ravnica, this is showing you that, like, yeah, they too eat and cook and use tomatoes and garlic and red onion, and you know, there's a mortar and pestle, and that's great. That's extremely cool to me. That's it. I don't think this card's particularly good. The fact that it's a food might be a little relevant. It is a 1 mana food that can equip itself. It does count as a thing. It is a food. Like, it's a full-on food. Yeah, Crovods are like large pack beasts on Ravnica. Is this cube worthy? I'd consider playing this in the 1-drop cube. I think this is likely going to end up in the 1-drop cube. Because it does everything that the 1-drop cube wants. First off, it's 1 mana. 2, it's a mana sink in a variety of different ways. It goes wide as well. It scales well. It's good on turn, you know. It's good when you equip it to a cheap creature early in the game, and it's good if you draw it late. It's incredible. It's incredible. Defenestrated Phantom. This idea of like a ghost getting thrown out the window is pretty funny. That's it. That's it. I hear Lenny playing outside my door. This is like this is my equivalent of, you know that episode of The Simpsons where Bart is stuck up in his room and he has to just look out his window and everybody's enjoying the pool and the sunshine and all that. I'm here working. And I just hear Lenny having so much fun out there. And I could go out and I could wrestle with Lenny. But instead, chat, I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you, chat, because you mean the world to me. No witnesses. 2 white for a sorcery. It says each player who controls the most creatures investigates, then they destroy all creature. What's getting blown up in this art? Looks like a camera. And also a person. But I believe this is a camera. Thomas, they've had 4 mana Wraths in standard, like, on and off for the past... They have one right now. They have Depopulate. Not good ones? I don't think this one's very good. I think that this is infinitely worse than Shatter the Sky. Also likely worse than Depopulate itself. This card, I obviously not Highlander playable. I don't think this card is actually Gladiator playable. I think there are just too many good 4 mana Wraths. We already have Wrath of God. We already have Supreme Verdict. I got to imagine we're getting Day of Judgment. I actually haven't checked if we're getting Day of Judgment. But Day of Judgment, or no, we have Day of Judgment, right? We have it from something. Yeah, Shatter the Sky. Like, there are so many 4 mana Wraths that you can play that just do the job. You don't even need to dip into these. And the ones that you can dip into if you really want to, I think are better than this. Because this card is almost always just giving them a clue, which lets them draw a card. And like, I guess the 2 mana is kind of nice. Like the fact that they have to pay to draw is kind of nice in that, you know, if they don't have a proper follow-up, like in order to get any cards out of this, they have to, you know, pay 2 mana at some point in time to do it, which means that's mana not spent rebuilding to the board, which is pretty good for control. But I don't think this is worth it. Luke 1 Christ, welcome back for the 6 months. Thank you for having me. It's great to be Wheeler. Thank you for being Wheeler. It's great to have you. Not on my watch. The names in this set are kind of wild. Novice Inspector. 1 white for a 1/2. When Novice Inspector enters the battlefield, you investigate. It's a new Thraben Inspector. Get this. I think this card's pretty good. This may shock you. You might be a little taken aback, but I think this card's pretty good. This card will absolutely see play in Gladiator. It'll see play in basically any deck that plays Thraben Inspector. And I gotta tell you, I'm coming around on Thraben Inspector showing up in Canlander. The more I think about it, I genuinely think having a second one kind of pushes it a bit more, because it's weird to think about it where it's like, do I want my deck to have one of these? It's like, I don't know. But if I want my deck to, do I want my deck to have 2 of these? Well, if I'm making a push to have cheaper cards, more 1-drops, things that make tokens, then like, yeah, I could consider playing this in like mono white or like a white X deck that cares about artifacts. I just think the Thraben Inspector and Novice Inspector, these cards are great and potentially underrated for Canadian Highlander. Unyielding Loxodon, or Unyielding Gatekeeper, excuse me. It is a Loxodon. 1 and a white for a 3/2 Elephant Cleric that has Disguise. Its disguise cost is 1 and a white. When Unyielding Gatekeeper is turned face up, exile another target non-land permanent. If you controlled it, return it to the play tapped. Otherwise, its controller makes a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. This card rules. The floor of this card is that it's a 2 mana 3/2, which we've all had a Sun Gold Sentinel that has not really done anything relevant other than hit your opponent for like 6 to 9 damage before dying or trading with something. Like 3/2 is a pretty good stat line, especially for white. White decks, specifically, I'm going to talk about Canlander for this one, have a lot of fast colorless mana, which means that getting to the ward cost or the disguise cost is going to be a little bit easier to play it. Like, you know, mono white deck can go like land Mana Crypt this on 2, or go like land Ancient Tomb on 2, this on 2. That's just like a play pattern that is pretty common. And then even for Gladiator, it's just you draw a card that can do something for 2 mana, for 3 mana, and for 5 mana, which is kind of hot. Then what this card does can either synergize with all of your utility cards and your ETBs, especially because this card is most likely to show up in like mono white or white green. Or you just use it to protect another card, because this having ward 2 when it's face down means that people are probably going to prioritize something else, and then you can protect it with this. Or you just get to say, nice Comet, nice Minskin nice Oko, I'm going to get rid of it. And they get a 2/2? Who gives a shit? This is great. This card is kind of phenomenal, and I think it might end up being undervalued for a while. Maybe not for Gladiator. It's hard to say undervalued in Gladiator because this card will see a lot of play and people will be like, yeah, it's a 2 mana 3/2. But like, there's so much utility behind this. So many different like points of play. Yeah, you can find it with Recruiter of the Guard, which is pretty funny. Yeah, non-land permanent. Yes, I think this card is very good for Canlander. Like, I'm going to be busting out the Selesnya deck that I played, the like Selesnya Watchwolf mid-range deck that I trophied with I guess, oh my god, 2 years ago. And this card's a slam dunk at that. Longmeat the Pirate. Very that fucking name. Have all the cards been spoiled yet? No, not yet. We're only talking about basically half of them. And thank you for the support. 44 months. That's a long time. And that's a long meet, the pirate. Okay. What about in clerics? Yeah, probably. Wojak Investigator. 2 and a white for a 2/4 angel detective with flying and vigilance. That says at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in your hand. This card survives bolts, blocks Vendilion Cliques, gets cast off Ancient Tomb mana or Mana Dorks, lets you dump your hand and start, like if you're a proactive deck, then you'll be able to play out your hand, obviously. Get this card on the board, probably before your opponent's able to do anything, hopefully. And then you immediately get a clue. And then if you keep up this pace and kind of control your hand, then you're going to keep getting more clues. And even if you don't get any clues, I mean, a 3 mana 2/4 Vigilance Flyer, like this crunches in, pressures planeswalkers, it challenges the board super well. Like it's a brick house. It's a pretty incredible body. Pretty incredible body. Gladiator primarily. Although you could probably play it in Canadian Highlander too, the more I'm thinking about it. Sorry, 1 second. Got a work message. Like the Valkyrie in Call Time, the Righteous Valkyrie. Yeah, but this is more flexible in where you put it. That's it for white cards already. I'm going to say this straight up. And this isn't a bad thing. The set so far looks very much like a limited standard commander set, which makes sense, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. As long as we just get like 5 to 10 cards for Canlander and then the rest is just whatever, that's okay. I am totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. Before I get to blue, I have to go grab my tea. This will be the 5th time I've walked off screen. But my throat, it ails me. Yeah, I'll take the low-powered sets over high-powered sets. This is kind of the trend, which is fine. I am totally okay with that. Also, I did get to go and pet Lenny. Got to go and pet Lenny. Okie dokie. Case of the Filched Falcon. 1 blue, enchantment case. When this case enters the battlefield, you investigate. So you make a clue. To solve, you control 3 or more artifacts. And when it's solved, you put 4 1/1 counters on target non-creature artifact, and it becomes a 0/0 creature with flying in addition to its other types. I think this card will genuinely show up in Gladiator, but maybe even Canadian Highlander artifact decks, like the aggressive ones, like the blue-white artifact mid-range deck could maybe get away with this. This gets turned on very quickly, right? Like, oh no, I have to own 3 or more I have to control 3 or more artifacts, and this makes 1. So you need to like just have an artifact land and another artifact card, or played like a 1-drop and then played like an artifact land and this on 2. Like, it's just so easy to get active, and then turning your, let's say, an indestructible land into a bird seems pretty appealing. Just getting a 4/4 indestructible artifact creature. Or of course, just like turning the clue into an artifact creature is pretty nice, you know? So yeah, it's cheap, really easy to get going. The floor is that it also just replaces itself with this clue token. It makes 2 permanents, and like, yeah, being able to instant speed, just make anything into a 4/4 is pretty hot. This might go in the 1-drop cube. It's kind of interesting that it can turn equipment. It replaces itself. There's like an artifact sub-theme, and it can go into the decks that have equipment, and they're like, oh, I have all equipment, no creatures. And then this just, you know, turns the equipment into the creature. Which is kind of cool. Case of the Ransacked Lab. 2 in a blue, enchantment case. Instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. To solve it, you need to have cast 4 or more instants and sorcery spells this turn. And when it is solved, you get, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. I don't actually know how often this bottom half is going to pop up, because casting 4 instants and sorceries in a turn is shockingly difficult to do, right? Obviously, this makes it a little bit easier, but this is still very difficult to do. And when you do that, then it's going to give you this payoff for trying to do this again. That said, 3 mana enchantment that says instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast, at least for Gladiator, is kind of appealing for the, you know, if you're trying to do storm stuff, if you're trying to do big mana stuff, like that 3 mana enchantment sits around and just does this is pretty nice. And while this is very tough to set up, so this could happen, right? Like cantrip into impulse into kill spell or whatever. Like this, I'm saying you can mostly ignore the bottom half of this card, but it's not a 0. It's like a planeswalker, right? You're not going to evaluate this on you're not going to evaluate the ultimate on your planeswalker all the time. It certainly shouldn't be one of the big factors. But the first part is just like, oh, that's good. I like this ability. So yeah, 3 mana for this ability. This I'm not going to say widespread play, but I could see it. Yeah, I'll talk about evidence before we go further. So this is Crime Stopper Sprite. 2 in a blue for a 2/2 fairy detective. That says, as an additional cost to cast the spell, you may collect evidence 6. That means you exile cards with total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard. So additional, you're casting this card, paying your 3 mana, casting this card. The game prompts you to pay an additional cost, which is collect evidence 6, which is exiling these cards. Kind of similar to Delve, not exactly like Delve for certain rules specificities, but the fact, like the whole, oh, I have this graveyard hate and my opponent has a big graveyard. Should I do it now? It's like, I'll wait until they like snapcaster it or whatever. You can be like, untap, cast this, additional cost, exile these cards in my graveyard, and your opponent has missed their chance. That sort of thing. And then it's a flyer that when it ETBs, you tap target creature, and if evidence was collected, you put a stun counter on it. So this card, 3 mana 2/2 flyer, and then a 3 mana 2/2 flyer that 3 mana 2/2 flyer that taps the thing, but if you get the evidence, it taps it and it stays tapped. That's basically what you're going to see for all the evidence cards down the line. Just kind of wanted to get this explanation out of the way. But yeah, there's evidence. Deduce. 1 in a blue for an instant. Draw a card, investigate. I've been burned by so many 2 mana cantrip style cards, you know? This is different from Think Twice, but it's pretty close to Think Twice, right? It's effectively a single card that can draw you 2 cards and can do so at different times for additional mana. This is technically cheaper in that Deduce is going to be Deduce plus sacking the clue is 4 mana to draw 2. Whereas Think Twice would be 5 mana for the initial cost and the flashback. Think Twice is casting 2 spells, which can be fairly relevant for decks that might have stuff like that Jace's Sanctum case, or cards that care about you casting a bunch of cards. I mean, that's also the Jace's Sanctum case now that I think about it. But yeah, there's some benefits to Think Twice, right? Over this card, especially because you can also interact with the clue. You can interact with the graveyard, which can make Think Twice not so great, but people can they might have a way to blow up an artifact or steal an artifact or bounce it or whatever. What I'm getting at is I'll give this card a shot in blue-white because the floor of this casting a spell, cycling itself, giving me a way to use my mana at another time while also potentially having a counter spell is pretty interesting. Yeah, I'll give this a shot, but I don't think it's likely that this card is actually worthwhile. Forensic Researcher. 2 in a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Detective. Tap, untap another target permanent you control, or tap and collect evidence 3. Tap target creature you don't control. I'm only talking about this for a couple reasons. 1, technically it untaps Time Vault. 2, it goes infinite with either like this, a clone, and Deep Root, Deep Water, whatever, the Deep Root Pilgrimage. The 2 mana card that says whenever a merfolk you control becomes tapped. Right? It's like whenever 1 or more merfolk you control becomes tapped. Yeah. So technically you can make infinite 1/1s with this, which is pretty cool. I don't think those necessarily have legs. Like a Time Vault deck is not going to play this in 2024. This is in 2015. And if you play a merfolk deck in either format, this might not. I mean, maybe in Gladiator this sees play because the amount of merfolk that you have in Gladiator is very small. But I don't know. I'm not super enthused to play a 3 mana no ETB that just dies to bolt that doesn't impact the rest of the board in merfolk. But if I didn't talk about it, somebody would bring it up. Ooh. Intrude on the Mind. 3 blue for an instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. You put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Then you create a 0/0 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and then put a 1/1 counter on it for each card put into your graveyard this way. Now, I'm the target audience for this card. I grew up with the EOT FOFYL mentality. Fact or Fiction is the best card in the game. You lose the game if your opponent gets to FOF and draws 3 cards or more. There's just no coming back. I will be playing this card. It's kind of funny. I look at this card and I think, why is this a mythic? And it's a mythic because in practice, I bet this is just a lot stronger than you think it would be. Like, there are going to be naysayers to this type of Magic that say, well, this costs 5 mana. It's a 5 mana instant. This is kind of fucked though. Like, thinking about it's rarity isn't the best way to like judge a card, but I do find occasionally when there's a card that they have put at mythic and I look at it and I go like, why would you do that? It's probably because they played with this card quite a bit and they're like, fuck, this just kills people. You know? Like 5 mana instant speed, get the best card. Like, think of it, there's so many ways to interpret this, right? 5 mana 4/4 flyer that when it ETBs, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you put the best one into your hand. Right? 5 mana 3/3 flyer that draws you 2 cards, and those 2 cards are likely going to be action. They will be good Magic cards. 5 mana 2/2 flyer, you draw 3 cards. 5 mana 1/1 flyer, draw 4 cards. Like, it's everything sounds good and it's all at instant speed. I'm sold. I'm fucking sold. Yeah. It's a little expensive for Canadian Highlander, but I still play Fact or Fiction when I shouldn't. So maybe I'll play this card in like some stinky blue-white deck when I shouldn't. Yeah, or draw 5. They could also just be like, look, you want to get an instant speed 5/5, or do you want to draw 5? Is this FOF or Steam Augury? It's FOF. Wait, hold on. It's Steam Augury? You reveal the top 5 cards and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. This is Steam Augury, not FOF. I still think that's okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. The benefit of getting a creature is a bit stronger. And like, I don't know, the quality of card. This is a really skill testing Magic card. Sometimes you'll just play it and it'll just won't matter and it'll be, you know, the end of everything they're trying to work towards. But in general, I think this is a pretty skill testing Magic card. It's pretty cool. Draft. What's this card even do? Profs Edectic? Oh god, I haven't had to read this word out loud. Profs Edectic Memory. 1 in a blue for a legendary enchantment. When it ETBs, draw a card. And you have no maximum hand size. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've drawn more than 1 card this turn, put X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the number of cards you've drawn this turn minus 1. So it's a 2 mana enchantment that replaces itself no maximum hand size, which is whatever. And then beginning of combat, you get to put counters on a creature equal to the amount of cards you've drawn outside of your draw step, effectively. It replaces itself and immediately buffs something. I might consider playing this in like Flying Men, like in Gladiator, or the Mono Blue Skies kind of deck. It's awkward because that deck draws a lot of cards on combat. I don't know. Like, this is... It replaces itself. It's blue, and it's cheap, and it buffs something immediately. Huh. Like, it just it replaces itself. Like, the strength of a card that replaces itself and is cheap and is blue, like the floor, and that will immediately get to buff one thing. And then as the game goes on, if you keep doing this, you can spend your mana and your resources to cycle for more cards without having to sacrifice strength on the board because your card's getting bigger. And if you're in blue, you might have ways to protect your creatures or prevent your opponent from building to the board. Is this the blue Luminarch Aspirant? God, no. But it's a pretty powerful... I think this is potentially a pretty powerful card. My issue is, like, where am I playing this? Why am I playing this? Is this better than the other cards I could be playing? Hold on. Mulder is trying to drink from my water. So I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go grab her some water. Hi. And you can enjoy a desk Mulder. Unsupervised desk Mulder. Here's the secret Mulder water. Secret Mulder water. The water that I act like I'm drinking, and then Mulder actually is drinking it. All right. Steam Core Scholar. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Flying Vigilance Weird Detective. When Steam Core Scholar enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. Then you discard 2 cards, unless you discard an instant or sorcery, or a creature card with flying. That's weird. This this is a cool Magic card, and then everybody goes like, "Oh," because they were hoping it was great. Flying Vigilance is very weird to have. Blue's been getting a couple of Vigilance cards in the past couple of years. This doesn't really, I guess, like Vigilant, as you know, it's a detective, but it seems odd. I mean, if you are playing this in like a deck with a bunch of spells, like a Blue X control deck, Blue X mid-range, maybe this is okay. Like 3 mana 2/2, draw 2, discard 1. I've played Inspiring Overseer in blue-white, and the life gain, while relevant, you know, the fact that it gets killed by the fact that it can't block like Mana Dork's pressuring or anything else is pretty gross. And like, yeah, playing this in a Reanimator is a thing. It's going to be a 3 mana 2/2 that can pitch like a Traxa or a what's another big flying reanimation card? Gristlebrand, I guess. Yeah, it could pitch some stuff, or just like unnecessary looting because you've already looted away your cards. Who knows? Weird card though. Pun not intended. This is probably not the best time to talk about Suspect. Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. I don't think I want to talk about this. Oh, this card rules. Archon, Sarah's Emissary. Yeah. Did I see the Temp Scryfall when we only had a foreign version? No. Was it a pun or a cultural reference? Or both? Case of the Stashed Skeleton. 1 in a black for an enchantment Case. When Case enters the battlefield, you make a 2/1 skeleton token and suspect it. Cards that are suspected are 2/1, or sorry, cards that are suspected have menace and can't block. And they have like, they're noted as being suspected, much like how, you know, something is monstrous, right? If it's suspected, it has menace and can't block. To solve it, you have to control no suspected skeletons. A very cool line of text. And when solved, you can pay 1 in a black, sacrifice this Case to Demonic Tutor as a sorcery. I think this card is good enough to play in black aggressive decks, black X aggressive decks. You can play this in Aristocrats. You could play this in yeah, no, actually I covered it. I think this card will be Canadian Highlander playable in like aggressive shells. Yeah, you just make an evasive creature that is just really easy to die. Like it's really easy to have it die or to kill it yourself. And then you get a Demonic Tutor. And yes, you can play a Soft Luris. That's pretty hot. Yeah, this card's got a lot of good going for it. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. It was Columbo Nimbus. Just constantly groaning and moaning. Yeah, these cards kind of stink. This card might be alright. Homicide Investigator. 1 in a black for a 2/2. Human Detective. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. Unfortunately, it triggers only once each turn. They don't want us to have fun. But that can be a pretty easy ask. Triggering on your opponent's turn, right? In a deck, I'm thinking about Aristocrats. In a deck where you just have a bunch of cards that you want to send to the, you know, to the maw of Carrion Feeder and Nantuko Husk. 2 cards not in Gladiator, by the way, but you know. More other creatures die. Yeah, I don't know. I'm comparing this to Morbid Opportunist, which is admittedly a more expensive card. 3 mana for a 1/3 on that one. That says whenever 1 or more other creatures die, you draw a card. Ability triggers only once each turn. Morbid Opportunist triggers on your opponent's creatures as well as tokens. This not triggering off tokens, not triggering off your opponent's creatures, makes me think that I just don't want to play this card. It's just too, like, and again, we're not drawing a card, we're just making clues. That could be relevant, like in Black-Red Reanimator, or not Black-Red Reanimator, Black-Red Aristocrats, where you might have cards that care about sacrificing other permanents, sacrificing artifacts even, right? Like, this could show up. But I don't think I'm going to be playing this in like a Mardu Aristocrats list, or like 4-color aristocrats or whatever. And yeah, too slow for mono black aggro. Ooh. I guess we should talk about this card first. It doesn't add up. A 5 mana instant for 3 black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to play. Suspect it. This is an instant speed reanimation card, which is kind of interesting. However, it is 5 mana. But still, 5 mana instant speed reanimate. Pretty nice. You can do this at the end of their turn. And if they counter it, you get to untap and then do it again with another reanimation card. Not being able to block is a bit of a pisser on certain cards. I'm not a huge fan of this, mostly because not every reanimation target is going to be not every reanimation target is going to be offensive and defensive, right? Gristlebrand and Atraxa are the big ones that are offensive because they're they're just gross. They're offensive. They're gigantic. They got flying, they're evasive. And defensive because Atraxa has both lifelink and vigilance. And Gristlebrand has lifelink. So you can race, right? Massive life point swings. And those two cards, giving them menace, doesn't matter. Giving them the inability to block kind of matters at a time, but not as much because again, we're just gaining a bunch of life when we smack them and we're not attacking. But when it comes down to the reanimation targets outside of that, you kind of want them to be, defensive. You want to be able to spend your turn getting this creature into play, and then chances are, banking on your opponent not being able to interact with them favorably or at all, or just it shuts down their board because they can't attack into this super well, right? But maybe that's fine. Maybe that's a trade you're willing to make for the instant speed. Admittedly, I haven't played Reanimator and Gladiator in a hot minute. Might be worth a revisit sometime soon. Instant speed could be a big enough pull, especially with blue getting better. But yeah, I'm still a little... 4 mana. We're really in the territory of wanting to get Zombifies now, instead of 5 mana reanimate plus keyword. Lead Pipe. 1 black for an artifact clue equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever a equipped creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. You can pay 2 to sacrifice Lead Pipe and draw a card. And you can equip for 2. I'm a big fan of these cards that just have it's, what is it called? Lead Pipe. What does it display? A lead pipe. Great. We're done here. We're done. We're good. We can pack it up. As an equipment, I would consider playing this in my 1-drop cube. I think this is going to find a home in the 1-drop cube. But while I did praise the haunch earlier, the expensive bone splitters are not super exciting, right? It's kind of nice that it just tacks on this wicked roll to your creatures, but it's kind of a hard sell for me. You only get to play so many pieces of equipment, even in aggressive decks, and I'm hard pressed to find a world where I want to play this one over Shadow Spear and potentially other stuff. But, it has a lot of good going for it. I just feel like the cost of inclusion for equipment is getting higher once you get for equipment number 2 and 3 and 4 and etc. Certainly for 2 and 3. Long Goodbye. 1 and a black for an instant. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. This is strictly better eliminate. at least in most cases. I mean, I guess, well, what if I have a, no, wait, this scenario sucks. Great. I'm going to be playing this in my black decks in both Canlander and Gladiator, because fuck your Oko. To hell with your Teferi. I'm sick and tired of your stupid graveyard trespasser. I just want them out. Just get me out. Get it out of here. Get it out of here. Do you replace, eliminate, or run both? That depends on the build. Depends on how many colors my deck is. Depends on how many spells I want. How many versions of this card do I want? Do I want two? Some lists want two. Some might only want one of these. You play too many of these cards without additional cards to kill bigger things, and then you're kind of in trouble. There's some options. But this one always gets played. There are options for this effect version 2 and 3 and etc. Massacre Girl Known Killer. 2 black for a 4/4 legendary creature human assassin with menace. Creatures you control have wither. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, you draw a card. For those of you not familiar with wither, your creatures deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. So they deal the damage in the form of -1/-1 counters. The same way that Infect would replace damage the creatures deal into -1/-1 counters. Very funny that this card is that Wither is back on this card. I'm a big fan of the design decision to just like occasionally be like, look, it's a rare. Or it's a mythic. It's a mythic rare from our set. We can use these keywords. It's fine. We can use these keywords. They did it with Sanguine Evangelist and brought Battle Cry back on one card. Very into it. Very into it. 4 mana 4/4 Menace is pretty big already, especially in black, right? It's huge, and if you double block, you're probably getting one of those cards killed, or there's going to be a profitable trade in which I'm drawing cards, you know, as the controller of the Massacre Girl here. And then it also just like, your creatures have Wither. If your opponents block, you get to start drawing cards. And that's pretty huge. This is pretty huge. Big fan of this. Big fan of this as a top end card. If you're going to play any big idiot at your top end for black X aggressive decks to mid-range decks, like, yeah. I think I'm a big fan of this. But it's also replaceable. It's in that category of like, it's certainly not better than Shieldred. And it's not as teched as something like Kalitas. But I think it's big enough and annoying enough that it'll have some time in the spotlight. It's not embarrassing to lose to this card, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, this card's not good, but it's kind of funny. Night Drinker Moroi. 3 and a black for a 4/2 flying vampire. When it ETBs, you lose 3 life and has disguise for black. So obviously you can play this as a 4-power, 4-drop flyer that ETB you lose 3, or you could disguise this on 3, untap, and then pay 2 and circumvent the life loss on the ETB. And then coincidentally, if you have, if you have clues, the curve of 3 mana, play this face down, untap, disguise, and crack a clue. It's pretty hot. Don't think this card's good, but it's just kind of it's a neat little card. I like it a lot. This card is like the perfect way of teaching somebody about the set without being really upfront about what it's trying to do. It's not in your face about what it's trying to do, but it's like it's pretty fucking great. Like as far as the design, like a design goes, it is pretty like chef's kiss. It's the like, oh, this just synergizes with like so many like, you know, play patterns and whatnot. Persuasive Interrogators, a 6 mana 5/6 Gorgon detective. And when it ETBs, you investigate, and whenever you sacrifice a clue, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. So I think this card is not playable, but it's closer than you'd think. If this card was like 5 mana, like I could see the top end of the like sacrifice, generate clues and food and treasures deck, playing this at the top end as just like a, oh, I'm going to sacrifice these clues and kill you. Like this card can kill people pretty quickly. Needs a little setup, but it's too expensive. 6 mana is just so much fucking mana, even if you do get a clue off of it. Yeah, it's pretty funny though. And yeah, this card will kill people in Commander. That's for sure. This card will absolutely kill people in Commander. Is this supposed to indicate that Phyrexia still has a presence on Ravnica? I shouldn't have read that out loud. Shouldn't have said shit. This costs 5 mana. Nice try. Nice try. This costs 5 mana. Nice try. Vein Ripper. 3 black for a 6/5. Vampire Assassin. Flying. Ward. Sacrifice a creature. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This is very funny because 1, it's just so thick. He's just so big. 2, it's a proper blood artist. It triggers off of any creature dying. And it's properly formatted in that it says target opponent. So you're not just going to get mucked if you play this card on Arena. Ward sacrifice a creature is either impossible. It's very similar to like the Graveyard Trespasser thing, right? Where it's like if you're top decking and then your opponent plays a Graveyard Trespasser and then you draw a card and it's a removal spell and you're like, shit, I can't do this. Unless it's the new Eliminate. But it's close to that. It's not quite that. You could just have stuff on the board, right? But at least you're always getting the drain. I think 6 mana is just too much mana for this kind of effect in Gladiator. Certainly in Canadian Highlander. But this is very big. This card is going to be expensive, and it is going to be a house in Commander. Assuredly going to be a big house in Commander. On to red. I'm looking. Connecting the dots. 1 in a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. And finally, reminder text, you can't look at it. Did you know that anytime something is exiled face down, that's hidden information, including memory jar? This is for you Canlander players out there, that if you play with memory jar, and if you start going to some of these comp events or whatever, you can't jar and look at your hand. That's gone. You better remember what those cards you tucked away are. Then this enchantment, yeah, unless it says otherwise. Right, that's very close to lab mansplaining. 1 in a red, discard your hand, sacrifice connecting the dots. Put all cards exiled with connecting dots into their owner's hands. Wait, hold on. Into their owner's hands? Oh, I guess it's if this card changes control. Like if I play connecting the dots and I have 3 cards exiled, and then you like steal my connecting the dots and get cards exiled, and then I steal it back, or you sacrifice it, they don't all go to the original controller's hand. It's just kind of, it's a funny thing to read, and you're like, oh, gotcha. I'm not a fan of this card. Bomad Courier and Bomad Courier is a good example of like this effect being reasonable, right? Because you can just, it's on a creature with haste. What more do you want? You get to pop it in. This does have some kind of strength to it in that you can play it and it just sits there, and then eventually you get to cash in. But it's a hard sell on me that I want to play this card over something like Inti or Lelia or whatever. And I know that you play it in addition to that, but like, when are these cards showing up, right? Like they feel like you just have to sacrifice either board disruption or pressure in order to play this card. And it's just so awkward to top deck, you know? So I'm not a huge fan of this kind of card. Convenient target, 1 red for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and is suspected, so it has menace and can't block. And then you can pay 3 to return it from your graveyard to your hand. Throwing this in the 1-drop cube. This is absolutely getting into the 1-drop cube. 1 mana aura that has 1 mana aura that can be used aggressively and defensively. I love these kind of cards. Though, like Shadow Rift is my favorite version of this. Shadow Rift is the 1 blue instant, target creature gains shadow until end of turn. So you can either shadow your creature, get your big creature, your important creature to connect, or you can you can Shadow Rift their creature so that they can't block, and then you attack with everything. And this has a similar play pattern of you convenient target their creature, and now all of a sudden their Elder Gargaroth or whatever can't block, and you just slam with everybody. Or they have you just like throw this on one of your other creatures, and now their blocks are terrible or non-existent, and you in. And that's very cool. That's very cool. How do I do this now? There we go. Crime Novelist. Oh, I guess Commander Zelgo D back for the 31st month. Set looks good for limited and Commander, but I love the roots back to original Ravnica. Yeah, this is I'm excited to play this I'm excited to engage with this set as a product of Magic the Gathering, as a single product. You know what I mean? Like, drafting it sounds cool. Some of the cards that get put into standard sound cool. Building around these pretty strong themes in Commander sounds cool. And then, like, I'll take the Mana Leak and the Novice Inspector or whatever, and then call it a day. Just like Erin for the 57th month. That's... Nope, sorry. No, too many months. Doing this too long. Thank you for all the support. That means the world to me. And Man vs. Manatee for the 7th month. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Don't forget the epic Clue tie-in. Oh, we'll talk about Clue. We'll talk about Clue, all right. Off subject, but since they started doing retro frame cards, can those cards go into Muscle Wizards? Yes. Muscle Wizards has to just all be old bordered. Mind you, haven't need to upgrade or adjust any cards in Muscle Wizards as it's retired. It was too good. Deck's too good. Remains undefeated. Crime Novelist for 2 and a red for a 1/3 creature, Goblin Bard. Whenever you sack an artifact, you put a 1/1 counter on Crime Novelist, and you add a red mana. Excuse me. A lot of people have been asking me about this card. In terms of Canadian Highlander, I would say that this card is unnecessary and very vulnerable. Unless there are very specific loops that you can set up with this card. Like multiple loops that this card ends up being the like joining link in the chain. This is not going to be good enough. It's a little vulnerable. Doesn't have trample. Doesn't play into like what you really want to do. But I don't know if you need it. Like the primary way that we sacrifice artifacts in Highlander is either through Arcbound Ravager, which this isn't a card that really saddles up with Arcbound Ravager, or through Kark Clan Ironworks, a magic card that doesn't need any help adding a shitload of mana and doing broken things. Certainly not any help from a card that is really difficult to actually find in the first place. So yeah, this is busted if you play a lot of Commander, because all your treasure tokens now add 2, make this card bigger. All of your clue tokens now effectively cost 1 to crack. Like this is going to be a messed up card in Commander. And then Gladiator, for the artifact decks, you might need to play something like this to get some combos going. This can open up some more stuff. This can make it a little easier to get like a big pop-off turn with the Goblin, like with Goblin Engineer and with Junkyard Scrapper, I believe is the card's name. The Alchemy Goblin. Yeah, so there's some game for this. I just think that this card, as a card, is just unnecessary. Unless it's Commander, where, you know, unnecessary is the whole point of the format. The artwork is incredible. It's so cute. It's so perfect. Might just be this just might be the best piece of artwork in the set. It's very traditional fantasy. I mean, it's, who doesn't love this? Who couldn't love this? It's even got Fibblethip. They didn't even need to put in Fibblethip here. This was already going to be the favorite of everybody. And then it has incredibly Kathleen flavor text. Incredible Kathleen flavor text. Kathleen was apparently behind the creative on this one. On this card, yes. You can tell because it says Vogos. An incredibly common name in Ravnica. Also, By Law and Order 2 is going to start airing very soon. So get ready for that. Demand Answers. I mean, this art's also pretty good. 1 in a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. And then you draw 2 cards. This is pretty strong. This has big, like, it's a Thrill of Possibility. Or it has shades of, like, Deadly Dispute. I'm a big fan of these do this or this, right? You have to pay a cost, but, like, there's flexibility in how that cost is paid. And this one's great. Like, sure, instant speed, discard my reanimation target, and then reanimate that target. Love it. sacrifice just a random artifact that I have laying around, a blood token, or a servo, and not have to pitch something from my hand. Great. Love it. Sacrifice an Ichor Wellspring. Why not? I imagine this card is... I mean, I guess the affinity decks already play Deadly Dispute, right? Because this card, for Pauper and stuff, this card has big Pauper vibes to me. But I imagine this card will see some Gladiator play, for sure. I don't know how I feel about these cards. This one's kind of interesting. Felonious Rage. So it's 1 red instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+0, gains haste until end of turn. And when that creature dies this turn, you create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So typically these, hey, pump spell, but when it dies, replace itself cards are on a lower boost to power. The 2 ones that come to mind are Make Your Mark from Strixhaven and Otherworldly Outburst from whatchamacallit, Eldritch Moon, right? Those are both 1 mana and they make 3 2s and they only give +1/+0. This one gives +2/+0, which is really good for trading up. Like if they do block, like you are most certainly killing whatever does the blocking. But also giving a thing haste and pumping it is relevant, right? Like, I don't know, playing out a Dreadhorde Arcanist and then casting this card. Playing out any kind of like Electrostatic Infantry or Sprite Dragon or whatever and playing this card. It's a little weird though, because if they were going to kill your creature, they were likely going to kill, like with a spell, they're likely going to do it with this card on the stack. And so yeah, it's a weird one. I think my end, my like final kind of analysis is that I don't think that this is going to be playable. I don't think that this quite pushes it. It feels a little weird to look at this card. There's some flexibility in the timing that you cast it, which is kind of interesting as far as pump spells go. And I mean, haste is nothing to laugh about. But yeah, I think it's we're not quite there. This is missing a little bit, but I wouldn't be shocked if I just lose to like a Naya Blitz deck that plays this card and kills me, right? Like it's, yeah. Fugitive Codebreaker. 1 and a red for a 2/1 Goblin Rogue with prowess and haste. And it has disguise for 5 and a red, but this disguise cost is reduced by 1 for each instant and sorcery. Why are the first 2 comments when I pull this card up are feet? Why does it always have to be feet? Why you always gotta bring up feet? And when Fugitive Codebreaker is turned face up, discard your hand and draw 3 cards. The internet is always horny, I guess. Yeah, it's dreadful. It's not even the good kind of horny. Like of a British secret agent. This card's pretty good. 2 mana, 2 power, prowess, haste card is also just like a reasonable stat line. 1 toughness is obviously not as great because it gets chump blocked pretty easily. But this is like if you play it on 2 as a haste card, it's reasonable. Like you get to bash for 2 and you have this creature that if they then play to the board, you spend your next turn removing it, which then means that prowess is going to be active, which means they're still getting hit for a lot. You can play this card on 3 in 2 different ways. You can morph it or disguise it, or you can just play it as a 2-drop, then use 1 mana to kill their thing, get prowess and bash for even more. You can play it and then just like fire off a bunch of burn spells the next turn and then untap, flip this over, draw 3 cards. Like this card does a lot. I really like it. I think this card is going to be pretty strong. and will show up in Gladiator and maybe even Canlander. I mean, Prowess is pretty enticing. Like Prowess Haste on a 2-mana card with 2 power is pretty enticing. And it's nice that it's Bedlam Reveler and more recently Hearth Elemental are 2 cards that have a similar kind of line of text here of the cost reduction equal to number of spells in your graveyard. But this one has the best, like, no, I'm just going to play this magic card for what it says. Like, you can ignore this disguise and this is just still like going to be reasonable in most games. But then having the, oh, I drew this late, time to get some added value is pretty hot. Card's great. Card's really good. I want to talk Galvanize. 2-mana instant, deals 3 damage to target creature. If you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, Galvanize deals 5 damage to that creature instead. I know it's a common, but I would love, like, why, God, if this card hit Planeswalkers, really wish this card hit Planeswalkers. It is kind of nice that in like blue-red, until you get Roast, this can kill Shieldred pretty easily. But why doesn't it hit Planeswalkers? I really love the trend of them just making cards that hit creatures also hit Planeswalkers. I think that was great. What happened? What are you doing here? I mean, not all of them have to do that, I guess. But for this, I like that quite a bit. Do I want a card that requires you to draw cards to hit Shieldred? I mean, if it kills Shieldred, I'll take it. Gearbane Orangutan. 2 and a red for a 2/2 ape with reach. When Gearbane Orangutan enters the battlefield, choose 1, destroy up to 1 target artifact, or sacrifice an artifact. If you do, put 2 1/1 counters on Gearbane Orangutan. In her defense, Thopters are very fun to smash. This card's great. I love that the artwork lines up so well with the card, where it's like, yeah, it's monkey hate artifact. This is tale as old as time. Monkey, why monkey have reach? Monkey hate Thopter. Monkey really hate Thopter. So monkey able to grab Thopter and kill. Monkey also have very long arm, right? It's orangutan. It's in the trees. It's got giant limbs. It makes sense. But also, sacrifice an artifact. If you do, put 2 1/1 counters on Gearbane Orangutan. It is currently holding 2 Thopters. And it is crushing them. Thopters are 1/1s. So it is crushing these Thopters and putting each of them providing a 1/1 counter. Now, it is sack a single artifact to put 2 counters on it. I know. But you wouldn't print this at sack 2 artifacts, put 2 counters. It could be pulling a Thopter apart as well, because that's what monkey do. Monkey smash, monkey pull. This card might actually be a reasonable Magic card. Right? We don't have Manic Vandal. We have Embereth Shieldbreaker, which is better than Manic Vandal. But, you know, it's a Manic Vandal. It's a Manic Vandal that could become a 4/4. That's pretty impressive. Thank you, Mulder. Oh, Mulder's at her secret water. I got Mulder to drink her secret water. God, I'm so good at manipulating this animal that loves me dearly. Mulder sometimes, she's an old cat. She's an old weird cat. So sometimes she gets a little weird about where she drinks her water from. But she'll always try to drink, you know, stuff off my desk. Be it water, be it tea. That's all I drink. And it's very nice to... I put up a glass on here. Yeah, she knows my water is safe. I'm drinking it. Get safer water? Her water's always safe. Although Kiefer does piss in Mulder's water daily. Brahms, welcome back for the 18th month. Monkey. Thank you so much for the support and for the monkey. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Drink her water to show it's safe, but then she's well, look, I'll drink out of my cat's water fountain if it'll make my cat think that it's safe. The things I would do for this stupid cat. Harry Dronesmith. 3 in a red for a 2/3 human artificer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. It gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. 4 mana for this effect is a bit too much, unfortunately. Very cool card though, even if it makes an artifact each turn. Yeah, cool card. I like that they get to make you know, this is the victim of the monkey. Is it? No, we don't know if that's true. You almost got me. Very cool card. She's supposed to be, is it? Well, Ravnica's in a weird spot. The guilds do exist, but a lot of people, I mean, Ravnica's dealt with a lot of shit, you know? After the 11th consecutive Thopter failed to return from Gruul territory, she developed a disposable model. I mean, that says that she's not Gruul. She's sending things to Gruul territory. Yeah. Cool card. Oh, my favorite card in the set. Knife. Knife. Just knife. I love it so much. I wish they did this with more cards. For a couple of reasons. I'll read the card first. 1 red. It's an artifact clue equipment. As long as it's your turn, equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has first strike. Pay 2, sack knife, draw a card, and equip cost for 2. I do wish that this just gave the creature +1/+0 flat, and then first strike on your turn. Maybe that's a little too wordy, but that's fine. Whatever. This card is phenomenal. Again, like the artwork, it shows a knife sticking into a piece of meat on a cutting board with some herbage around the meat. So and obviously the knife is a little bloody because it's pierced in this meat, right? But it also just shows you like, yeah, this is the thing that people eat. Yes, and there are fingerprints on the knife. It's a thing that people eat. We know that when they cook meat, they either it sounds weird to say because it's Ravnica. You can make these assumptions given how, you know, modernized that plane is, but it still like tells you a lot about, oh, when they eat meat, when meat gets cooked in these fancier settings, you know, they use herbs and spices. They have this kind of, this is how they present the food. This is the kind, they use silverware, right? It does a lot to draw you into the theme. The fact that it's just called knife and is a knife is something I adore. I wish they did this for basically every set. It's perfect to see this. Like, it's perfect for the Clue murder, whodunit set. But in general, it's just, it really speaks to like old school D&D stuff that I love and that I know barely anything about. Outside of like, yeah, I like it when there's a card that's a club and it's called club, or a knife and it's called knife. Give me a card that's a bucket and it's called bucket. Print a chicken card that's called chicken. Like, that's great. It's great. Would love more of that. Would love more of that. Krenko, Baron of Tin Street. 2 and a red for a 3/3 legendary goblin with haste. Tap, sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on each goblin you control. And whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from play, you can pay a red. And if you do, you make a 1/1 goblin token with haste. This card's very funny because it's like teaching people how the stack works in real time. Where it's like, oh, I tap and I sacrifice this artifact, but before this ability resolves, this artifact triggers and I get to make a goblin. And I get to put I get to put a counter on the goblin. Great. I don't think this card is playable in Highlander or Gladiator. I mean, it's a 3/3 for 3 with haste, which is kind of appealing. You do need some amount of artifacts in order for this to actually do anything super relevant. Notably, it doesn't matter how the artifact goes to the graveyard. You just have to have an artifact die and you gotta pay a red. Yeah, it's maybe goblins is such a tight list in Canadian Highlander, and even in Gladiator, goblins has so many 3-drops. So many 3-drops. You kind of need something to this needs to be able to do something. Like, I need to reliably have artifacts to sacrifice for this card to see play. So I'm a little mid on this card actually seeing play. I mean, maybe a goblins list with like, well, I don't want to exactly sacrifice Skull Clamp, but a goblins list that's on like double Mox and like Soul Ring and Clamp and whatever, like maybe. Cool card. Speaking of cool cards, Pyrotechnic Performer. 1 in a red for a 3/2 Viashino Assassin with disguise for a single red. Whenever Pyrotechnic Performer or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So, let's look at the play patterns on this card. You play this card on 2, and you got a 2-mana 3/2. Not that bad. That's just a good stat line to have. You don't include a vanilla 2-mana 3/2 in your deck just off of that, but the fact that it shows up means that it's a-okay. You're not upset when you draw it and you're like, oh, this thing's big. Turn 3, you can play this face down. And you got a 2/2 with Ward 2. Kind of annoying to kill. And because all your cards are so cheap and efficient, anything that causes your opponent to have to pay additional mana to deal with your cards means that they're often trading down, or they're using their whole turn to take care of one card, and then you can take advantage of this. Turn 4 and beyond, you can either just like, if this card's already been in play, flip it up for a single mana, dome them for 3, and then carry on. And your 2-mana 3/2, or your, I guess it's a little different, but your creature just domes them for 3. doming them for 3 is a pretty cool thing to do. You draw this late in the game and you pay 4 mana for this 3/2 that domes them for 3, and that's totally fine. Big fan of this card. Big fan of this card. Good aggressive red card that also just transitions into the late game well. And I mean, if you have additional stuff to work with, that's great. Red Herring. 1 in a red for a 2/2 artifact creature clue fish with haste, and Red Herring attacks each combat if able, and pay 2, sacrifice Red Herring. Draw a card. Now there's a card that's already called Red Herring from a like Misty Boosty, like it's a playtest card, Misty Boosty playtest card, which is a little confusing, but thankfully that card is just not legal anywhere. That's not a real Magic card. It is a little annoying, but also I think people will survive. Poor Scryfall. It's bad for sellers. I think they'll survive. I think that it is annoying if this is a thing that pops up and they do it several times. Yeah, Pick Your Poison is also in this set. I don't know. I think people are riling themselves up over this kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, it's kind of shitty. I wish that they didn't make these, I would prefer that these names, if they're going to use them in a mainline set, are just not ever used for the Mystery Booster set. But also, just, who gives a shit? Like, it's just so hard for me to give a shit. Right? Now, granted, it's not exactly my line of work. I understand that this is an additional grievance towards the secondary market and the sellers, that Wizards has continuously been doing this, like it obviously making their lives harder and harder. But unless you are directly involved in like selling of cards and at a managerial or higher level, it feels very weird to just really work yourself up over this kind of thing. I don't know. You can care about multiple things. You can get upset about multiple things in the game and multiple grievances, but this feels like a weird one to really just like get your hackles up over. You know? Yeah, I like Valley Dasher. I don't think this card's very good, but you know. Shock's back. I'm more upset that the list of mystery booster cards are denoted identically, having the same name. What do you mean denoted identically? One's MKM, one's MB1. One's also not a real Magic card. I mean, that helps. The Planeswalker symbol in the corner. Oh. I see. Whatever. Oh, let's talk about this card. It is very funny too. Do you know how many cards in Pokemon are named like exactly Charmander? Or Pikachu? Like that's just their name. Their name is Pikachu. A Killer Among Us. 4 and a green for an enchantment. When a Killer Among Us enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white human token, a 1/1 blue merfolk token, and a 1/1 goblin token. Then you secretly choose human, merfolk, or goblin. Sacrifice Killer Among Us, reveal the chosen creature type, If target attacking creature token is the chosen type, put 3/1/1 counters on it and gains death touch until end of turn. I don't think this card's playable. I do think it's extremely cool to like draft with. 5 mana, make 3 different 1/1s that you can also just like blow people out with is kind of hot. Big fan of that. Obviously, I'm just talking about this card because of the name. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm getting older and I just like... I think maybe it's a combination of me getting older and me having been in this line of work for as long as I have. And thus having to be online reading the takes of other people on twitter.com surrounding Magic the Gathering cards. It's just not to sound like I'm too apathetic or whatever, but I saw multiple posts with people being like, this is so fucked. I can't believe they would do this. This is shit. What is Magic turning into? Just some kind of meme fest or whatever? And it's like, you know, this is a term that is just, this is some pretty old school terminology. You know, this predates Among Us, the game for, you know, yeah, it's a trope. So there's this guy, Billy Shakes. Maybe you've heard of him. Occasionally goes by William. Yeah, it's why the game is called that. And it's just, I don't know. I kind of wish I'm at this weird point when it comes to like people on Twitter and people on Magic social media, is that either you need to give a shit, give less of a shit about these things because it's the internet. These things are trivial. Who cares? This isn't directly impacting your life on a day-to-day or whatever. Or you're just too stupid to actually know what this is referencing, or you just don't know. Or 2, you need to give more of a shit about the things that actually matter. People are often caught in the middle, and it's just very weird to see just like adult human beings throw like little mini tantrums about stuff where it's like, okay, sure, I guess. Yeah, guy who only plays Among Us. I'm getting a lot of Among Us vibes from this. Aftermath Analyst. 1 and a green for a 1/3 elf detective. When Aftermath Analyst enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. And then pay 3 and a green, sacrifice Aftermath Analyst. Return all land cards from your graveyard to play tapped. That's pretty good. I'm going to be playing this in Dredge. I'm going to be playing this in in lands decks for Gladiator. I might give this a shot in like turbo lands in Canlander. I'm kind of working on like a lands combo deck with like Fast Bond, Horn of Greed, Exploration, like all in turbo lands and loaming kind of stuff. And this card might get in because it's cheap enough to tutor up early. And then, you know, obviously returning all my lands, getting the Splendid Reclamation. Is that the name of the card? It's Splendid Reclamation, right? I always get this card name confused with another card that's very similar. And yeah, doing that at instant speed is pretty nice. So yeah, cool card. Also, I really like this art. Really enjoy this art. Here's a card art that I'm shocked I hadn't heard more people talk about. It's not my preferred style, but this is the kind of card where I am surprised I haven't seen people on Twitter just like losing their fucking mind over this. Airtight Alibi. Jeremy Wilson. What else has Jeremy Wilson done? Jeremy Wilson. Jeremy's Iron. Oh, yeah. Jeremy Wilson. I mean, I can just drag and drop this over here. Jeremy Wilson with like the bone splinters. I love this Empress Shieldbreaker art. Love it. Love, love, love it. And I'm not a huge like Eldraine frame guy, but I love this artwork. Yeah, and I liked Unnatural Restoration too. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. Ooh. Analyze the pollen. Excuse me, I had to burp. And I'm not some beej that's going to burp on. Analyze the pollen. 1 green for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 8. Search your library for a basic land card. Great. If evidence was collected, instead, search your library for a creature or a land card. Any land, not just basics. Reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Evidence 8 is a lot. That is a lot of mana to get to. But for certain decks, it might be easier to turn on than Traverse the Uvenwald. There's so many cards with Traverse. The 1 mana sorcery, find a basic, Delirium, find land or creature instead. But yeah, this is, I like these kind of cards. They synergize really well with the new land cyclers because you get that high mana value very quickly. And then 1 mana, find a creature or land is just pretty hot. I'm going to be playing this in, I'll try it in Dredge. I'll try it in, there are probably some other creature combo decks or mid-range decks that want to give this a gander. I'm going to play this in Charbelcher in Highlander. I think this is a great card for Belcher and Highlander. Because it can find Bomberman, which is kind of funny. This lets you play the Bomberman package in that deck. And it, I'm going to be playing in the aforementioned all-in lands combo deck because, 1 mana, find your Dark Depths, stage, strip, whatever. Seems pretty good. If there was a easier way of like paradox and putting a bunch of cards in your graveyard, then maybe I'd consider this, but I think that's a bit too hard. Axebane Ferox. 2 green for a 4/4 Death Touch haste and has ward collect evidence 4. So whenever this card becomes the target of a spell and ability, an opponent controls, counter it unless that player exiles cards of total mana value 4 or greater from their graveyard. I've been looking at this card for a long time, and I'd be very curious. Wormy's not here right now, but I'd be very curious to get Wormy's take on this card because I trust Wormy to let me know whether or not this is going to be reasonable. My take is that this card sucks. I think this card is like really bad. Doesn't have trample, doesn't have a way to actually get push damage. Gets chump blocked all day, and chump blocking it just like makes it so easy to pay for ward. And then the ward cost doesn't even fucking matter. Like, I don't know. I'm just like imagining my mono green opponent plays this card and they're like, attack. I'm like, oh geez. I guess I'll Doomblade this and exile, I don't know, like the Sign in Blood and my Callous Blood Mage or whatever, right? It's just like the ward cost is that you just have to eat a bit from your graveyard, and that's fine. It's just so... like, I think that you have to compare this card to Questing Beast, not based on the text of the cards, but in the fact that it's like your 4-drop green creature slot, right? Your 4-drop slot in your green X aggro or your mid-range decks already filled to the brim. Why am I playing this card? And you like, I'm playing Questing Beast before I play this card, and then am I playing another card after Questing Beast that is just all aggression? Is it going to be this? Probably not. Probably not. Oh, there's the actual art. I realized I clicked on a different art. Whoops. Bite down on crime. This card's kind of funny. It's not playable, but 4 mana sorcery, additional cost. You can collect evidence 6, and if you do, it costs 2 less to cast if collected. And it's a fight spell, but I like the name. Bite down on crime. Ooh. Case of the Locked Hothouse. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. It's a 4 mana enchantment case. To solve, you control 7 or more lands. And when it's solved, you may look at the top card of your library any time. You may play lands and cast creature spells and enchantment spells from the top of your library. Wait, I realized there was another rule. Oh, I don't even have it in here. We had another rule. The other rule is if a card comes up on screen, don't just shout next, bad, mid, boo. Don't do that. Don't do that. Doesn't add anything. At least let us discuss the card. Especially because a lot of the times, unless you pay money, you got to pay $5 per that. Oh, it does say that? No Labman's playing, no demanding Queen Sass, no insulting birds, next or 5. No, it doesn't just it doesn't say the like no like interjection. Interjection doesn't work. Seems expensive to me. $5 is pretty reasonable for you to be a bit of a jerk on the internet, you know? Yeah, I know the card. Okay, so this card is expensive. But it does trigger, like, in the right deck, this triggers, like, almost immediately. Right? Like, play this on 4, play an additional land, untap, next turn, land, and then you get a pretty impressive enchantment. Right? I think that this card will see a little bit of Gladiator play. I might even consider this in Highlander, honestly. That Turbo Lands deck is going to be playing some dog shit. That is just like, look, it costs 4 mana, but my deck is literally about making as many land drops as possible. And this lets me do that. And it also just lets me, like, combo off the top of my deck without having to play something that dies to Swords to Plowshares or whatever. You know? So I think this has a home. Potentially even in a high-powered format. But yeah, if I'm playing a lands deck in Gladiator, like I'd play this in Maze's End. It doesn't build to the board in a defensive way, which has an interesting kind of setup. But yeah, the enchantments is pretty sick, right? Like you could play getting this and then being able to play Spelunking off the top and like Druid class and Spelunking, Druid class, Guild Summit, like a bunch of stuff, you know? It's not the best card in the world, but it has a role that it can play. Ips Yop. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing and joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? God bless subscribing. Don't know why I said that. This card's kind of funny. I don't think it's particularly good, but it's got very cute art. Classic Jesper art. Get a leg up. 1 green instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains reach. This is... There are other cards like this. Gaining reach doesn't really do anything. Obviously, it's pretty good if you have tokens and whatnot. It's not a playable card, but one of these days they're going to print this card that gives +1/+1 and trample, and that isn't Call of the Chorus. Chorus of Might. Is that the one? Chorus of Might's the 4-mana one. Yeah. One of these days we'll get a cheaper version of this. I don't remember this card. Oh, it's so cute. Hedge Whisperer. Oh. 1 green for a 0/3 Elf Druid Detective. You may choose not to untap Hedge Whisperer during your untap step. 3 and a green, tap, collect evidence 4. Target land you control becomes a 5/5 plant boar creature with haste, as long as Hedge Whisperer remains tapped. Still a land, used only as a sorcery. That's a very good pig. I like this card. I highly identify with this card. I summon my pig. Very cute. Very cute. Another classic Jesper art. Loxodon Eavesdropper. 4 mana 3/3. Elephant Detective. ETB, you investigate. Draw a second card, gets +1/+1 vigilance until end of turn. He's all ears. Another very cool card to show off Ravnica. Doing this a couple of ways. One, this is just a cafe. It's like a cafe or a restaurant in Ravnica. That's a thing that people might not know exists. You got this elephant wearing a detective outfit, which is very funny. But also, this is very clearly like a Selesnya cafe, right? It's like a Selesnya cafe, and it has people in this cafe that are not from the Selesnya, or at first glance they don't seem like they're from Selesnya. That's another thing that I think gets lost. Maybe it's all the By Law and Order 2 filming talking, but that's a thing that I think gets lost with a lot of people. Is they think of Ravnica as like it's guilds and only guilds, and here are the guilds, and don't you get your is it in my Dimir, right? Don't you dare have your potatoes touch my peas. I can't eat it then. It's just kind of neat because when if I asked you, what do you think of when I mentioned the Selesnya, right? When I mentioned this, when I ask you, what do you think of when I mentioned the Selesnya? People are bound to be like, they're a cult that is a bunch of druids and they care about nature and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But like, what do they do? What do they do? And it's like, well, I guess this is one of the ways that you can figure it out. They have cafes, they run spas, they do a whole bunch of stuff. It's cool. It's very cool to me. And I kind of like them pushing away from the guilds a little bit. Like, the guilds, obviously, a lot of shit has happened on Ravnica, and the guilds are still there, and we get cards that care about guilds and color pairing, but also, it doesn't have to be all guild all the time, right? When Ravnica is all guild all the time, it's kind of just like it's like another Fast and the Furious movie coming out, right? Where it's like, oh boy, time for my slop, right? Which is like, that's fine. I love Fast and the Furious movies. I love having my slop dropped in front of me every X amount of years. But also, I like it when they do something a little different and showcase that it's not just this one trick pony over and over again. I haven't read the story, Long Meet the Pirate. I know about the story, but I haven't read it yet. I haven't sat down and actually read the fiction, but I'm likely going to be doing that. Oh boy, I wonder if this will be about family. Nervous Gardener. 1 and a green for a 2/2. Dryad with Disguise. for a single green. And when Nervous Gardener is turned face up, search your library for a land with a basic land type. This includes triomes. This includes shocklands. That's it. I'm saying this so that people know. Finds the dual lands. I'm saying this so that people know. Because I read this card and didn't realize that was the case. Pick your poison. 1 green sorcery. Choose one. Each opponent sacks an artifact. Each opponent sacks an enchantment. Or each opponent sacks a creature with flying. This is another card from... This also has like a... whatchamacallit? A fake card named after it. This also has a fake card named after it. Again, everybody, calm down. Let's just take a deep breath. I think you'll be okay. This card is so fucking good in formats with sideboards or as a utility card in CDH. Yeah. Like, I don't think this is worth a slot in 100 card singleton, which is kind of unfortunate. Like in Highlander and Gladiator, part of the reason why I like adding sideboards is you get to play cards like this. I would love to play with sideboards and be able to play with a card like this. You know, it's flexible, it's cheap, it's cool. But yeah, for Commander, I mean CDH, pay 1 green, I'll get rid of your Heuristic Study, I'll get rid of, like, you got to get rid of your Heuristic Study, that Smothering Tide needs to go, your Mystic Remora needs to get out of here. That's spicy. Oh, you all started with Ring and Mox Diamond and stuff? Okay, well, get rid of it all. This rules. Very cool. Sharp-Eyed Rookie. 1 and a green for a 2/2 Vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if its power is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's power, or its toughness is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's toughness, put a 1/1 counter on Sharp-Eyed Rookie and investigate. Big fan of this card. 2 mana 2/2 Vigilance being the floor is, you know, nothing to phone home about, but it's reasonable. It attacks and they protect and block and attack. I fucked that joke up. That's it. The stream's over. We're done. Yeah. It's not anything to phone home about, but it's totally reasonable. And it's just another green card that scales. Play this on 2. You play a bigger creature the next turn, and then this gets bigger, and you investigate, and so forth and so forth. And that's cool. That's very cool. That's it. I think I played in Gladiator. That's it. Is it just me, or is the perspective on the foot off? Of the foot? Of this foot? Foot? Or this? This is like a small vase or an urn. Or a vial or a goblet. A phylactery, if you will. The Pride of Hallclade. 10 and a green for a 2/15. Legendary creature, crocodile, elk, turtle. I kind of wish this was a crab, I gotta admit. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. Pay 2 blue. Until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw cards equal to its toughness and can attack as though it didn't have defender. I love this. This is a very cool spin on the big booties matter, as well as the walls matter, right? It's not quite Arcades in the sense that Arcades is very like, look, you wanted a wall commander in Bant? Here you go. This is much more interesting to me. Obviously, it has a huge ass. And if it hits, I mean, God, if you get to untap, activate this and hit and you're drawing 15 cards, great. But you're also just hitting them for 3. And you can target any creature that you control. This rules. Big fan of this card. It makes for a very interesting set of requirements, restrictions, and build-arounds, which I always like. I find that to be infinitely more interesting for Commander than just giving you everything that you want. Activated ability looks a little expensive. It can be a bit up front, but you're in green and you're in blue, but mostly green. And while it's not necessary, you are incentivized to play this card with walls, right? And so you are likely going to have cards like Overgrown Battlement and Axebane Guardian and other mana accelerants in your deck that can, you know, get this popping off. Cool card. Topiary Panther, 4 green for a 6/5 plant cat with trample and has basic land cycling for 1 and a green. I mean, if this is a cycle, then cool. But you know what? We're just so blessed with whatchamacallit, Generous Ent and friends that it's wild to look at this card and be like, okay, sure, why not? On to gold, which means we're going to be reading basically every card. Agris Koss, Spirit of Justice. 2 red and a white for a 2/4 legendary spirit detective with double strike and vigilance. When Agris Koss enters the battlefield or attacks, choose up to 1 target creature. If it's suspended, exile it. Otherwise, suspect it. So, again, suspect means that the creature has menace and can't block and is like noted as being suspected. So, this ETBs and says, you're sus. I'm going to hit you. And then they are not going to want to attack into your 2/4 double striker. So they're probably going to attack somewhere else. And if that card becomes a problem on your combat when you attack with Agris, you can then say, okay, that's suspected again, aka it's exiled. Or you could just cause more mayhem and go like, okay, well, they hit you, so now that's suspected, and now you can hit somebody else. And it's nice that sus sticks around, so even if Agris Koss dies, that's okay. You get the ETB to sus another thing, and you can exile something entirely. Cool card. Don't think it's playable in Gladiator or Highlander, but very cool card. Also, get used to me saying that for a lot of these cards. Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth. 1 white and a blue for a 3/3 legendary human detective with vigilance. The most handsome man in the multiverse. Jesus Christ. Just what the fuck? How'd they do this? How'd you do this? And I haven't even read the card. When Alquist Proft enters the battlefield, investigate. 3 mana 3/3 vigilance investigates. Great. And then pay X, white, blue, tap, sack a clue, draw X cards and gain X life. So he's a 3 mana 3/3 that investigates on ETB, attacks and blocks pretty well with vigilance, happens to be a human, and then can turn clues into Sphinx's revelations. I will be playing this card in Gladiator. I don't think I should be, but I will be. because, you know, it's a Sphinx's Revelation. It's a Sphinx's Revelation that if I just, like, get to untap with this later or make additional clues. Like, it's just... It's not great. This card's going to be a house in Commander, but, yeah, it's a hard sell for me to actually play this, you know, strategically. Competitively, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But yeah, cool card. Very cool card. Very good looking card. Assassin's Trophy is back, but we already have it. I literally picked up my mug to take a drink, had my eyes closed, and went to put down my mug, and Mulder had jumped on the table, and I almost bonked Mulder with my mug. And now she's drinking table water. Where's Aurelia above the law? Aurelia above the law. Or the law above. Oh, that's so good. Okay, for starters, that's pretty good. For exactly that little switch up. 3 red and a white for a 4/4 legendary angel with flying, vigilance, and haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia the Law deals 3 damage to each of your opponents and you gain 3 life. She casts Lightning Helix. Or I guess she Firemind Avengers. I guess is kind of what we're looking at. I mean, Firemind Avenger, Lightning Helixes. It's Lightning Helix. Holy, oh my god, it's Lightning Helix. This is a 5-mana card. It's a 5-mana card with an ETB, but you have haste and vigilance and flying. I struggle to find a world where I'm playing this card over Glorybringer or Goldspan Dragon. You know, it's a hard sell. Or like even if you dip into white, like the backup angel, Boonbringer Valkyrie, is that the one? Like, it's cool that this is defensive too, right? You get to smash and then just have this 4/4 on block. And because you're in Boros, you might get to draw a card. If this card is drawing you a card, they're probably dead, right? Like, they're probably dead. I attacked you. I got to a point in the game where I have 2 other creatures that can successfully attack you. And I got to play my 5-mana creature. And I got to smack you, right? And drawing a card, great. You're probably fucking dead. I'm not going to use this card. If this is in play and your opponent's attacking you with 3 creatures, drawing a card's nice, but in what spot is my opponent attacking me, the player with a 4/4 vigilance flyer, with 3 or more creatures, and I'm not dying from this attack? Like, it's a card where it being a giant Mantis Rider is more or less like where it's going to show up in 1v1. For Commander, it's a different story, right? People are attacking everywhere. This card's pretty cool for Commander. It's an angel. It's an angel that draws you cards. They made a Mantis Rider into an angel that draws you cards. This is everything I want in a Magic card for Commander, but I just don't think it's good enough for 1v1. This card's kind of funny. Blood Spatter Analysis. Black and a red for an enchantment. When it ETBs, deals 3 damage to a creature an opponent controls. And whenever one or more creatures die, you mill a card and put a Bloodstain counter on Blood Splatter Analysis. Then you sacrifice it if it has 5 or more Bloodstain counters on it. And when you do, you return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. 2-mana sorcery speed, deal 3 to only creatures is just not good enough anymore. If this card came out like 3 years ago, I would have slammed. This card would have fucked in early Gladiator. Like, oh my god. And not in like an overpowered sort of way, but just as a like, oh my god, I get to kill your 2-drop or your 3-drop. And then like, as I continue to play the game of Doomblade, your Baneslayer Angel, I get to bring back something else. Whoa. But it loses out on a couple of things. One, it's sorcery speed. And it's only 2, it's only hitting creatures, and 3, it's only for 3 damage. Which, yeah, that's just too much. Pretty cool in multiples, I guess. Buried in the Garden. 2 green and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant land. When Buried in the Garden enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent you don't control until it leaves play. And when enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. Cool card for the... Oh, why is it Enigmatic Incarnation deck? Like it's like, yeah, it's a combination ossification fertile ground, which is kind of nice. It's also a 4 mana enchantment, which means that the Enigmatic Incarnation deck can then convert your 4 mana enchantment into just like a pick your poison on the busted 5 drops you want to grab. But yeah, kind of neat. It could show up. Yeah, and to mom, that's kind of hot. It needs hexproof. I mean, I think this is fine, right? Inside Pigeon. I hope I said hello. You'll have to excuse me. I took some medication. If I didn't, welcome back for the 55th month. Glad to have you. Good to see you. And Strong Chonkler for the 23rd month. Eggs. Thanks for all the eggs. Appreciate you. Well, thank you, Strong Chonkler, for all the eggs. So close to the 2 years. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for the support. I am going to grab some more water. And water that isn't being drank by a cat, I guess. Oh, wait, no, I have tea. Never mind. But I should actually go piss. So I'm just going to put another card on the screen while I go run to the washroom really quickly. I will say, I guess we're not at K yet, but I haven't seen my favorite character in the game, Teysa Karlov, yet. I hope she's doing okay. I'm going to now just go to the washroom. I'm going to put a random card on the screen. And who knows, maybe we'll get to talk about Teysa when we come back. That'd be really interesting. Oh my god. No. This card stinks, but you know, a good bit. Really good piece of art. Is she okay? Is she okay? Hey, do I have any Australians in chat right now? I heard that. Any Aussies in the house? Because I have a is it Violet Crumble? I have a Violet Crumble, which is apparently an Australian chocolate. I don't actually know what it is. All right. This is my review of an Australian chocolate, the Violet Crumble. This is a crunchy. This is just a crunchy. Not that I'm complaining, but I mean, it's tasty. Or did I get trolled? Did you just put a bunch of mini crunchies in another bag? Any opinion on Hershey's chocolate? I got dairy milk. I got Cadbury. I'm good. I don't need Hershey's. Although that's not true. I had Hershey's from Hershey's. That was really good. I mean, when it was, if it's like a Hershey's chocolate bar, like from the, I mean, I don't buy chocolate, but like a Hershey's chocolate bar, maybe not for me. But if it's the like actual Hershey, because somebody gave us actual like the from was it from Hershey's? I think it was in Minneapolis. It was delicious. Actual factual chocolate from that era. Yeah, Canadian Cadbury's, you know, whatever. But oh, it must have been Philly then. It was Philly because we were in the art gallery. Doug Walker. They made a nostalgia critic card. Red and a white for a 3/1. Human citizen with vigilance. Disguise. 2 Hybris Boros. And when it's turned face up, you make 2 tapped 1/1 dogs. I don't think this card's playable. But this card rules. This card rules. And it kind of fits this theme of these disguise cards where this is just a citizen, right? If they're disguised, they're just in the crowd. They're it's all blurred, right? You might not even notice them separate from anybody else in that crowd. But when their disguise is flipped up and these 2 dogs start pulling, then you're like, oh shit. That person with 2 dogs. That's somebody with dogs. And their disguise is, you know, gone. They're no longer blending into the crowd. It's great. It really plays into the like suspicion of it could be anybody. And then kind of like that jitteriness of like you hear the thing, you're like, and then no, it's just somebody with their dogs. Very cool. Fuck, I did it again. Wait, what is it? Control T? Control Shift T? Control T? What is it? Quick! Chat, help! Control Shift T. Nope, it's not working. Unless I open the browser, which I already have open, I guess. Are we sure this is going to work on Firefox? Oh, wait, no, this doesn't help me. Doesn't even help me. All right. Card image gallery. While I get this set up, I want to share something with everybody. Hello? 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 I want to share something with everybody. I've been playing, in my own time, a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Red using only bug types. And I spent all of my money getting a Scyther because it's one of the bug types that I can use. I was only using Butterfree, Beedrill, and Parasect. And I got a Scyther. And let me tell you how dog shit Gen 1 Scyther is. And how I literally have $0 now. And I have a Pokemon that can't even learn Body Slam. It stinks. Although, I gotta tell you, I am shocked at how reasonable bug type moves actually are. Because Gen 1 gets a lot of flack for its bug type moves. Understandably, they're kind of crap. Like in theory, but then when you actually play with them, like you're just ripping apart these poison types and the psychic types and grass types. Like it's doing. No, you got Leech Life, Pin Missile, Twin Needle, and honestly, Pin Missile and Twin Needle are not that bad, especially when you factor in high crit chance. And Leech Life is even okay. Like it's not as bad as every Pokemon YouTuber that wants to make a quick $5,000 off the easiest video they've ever made in their life may lead you to believe. Isn't Leech Life 20 base power? Yeah, but like I think people are used to just like those games, early games being so easy that you just one-shot everything, that like those attacks get a lot of flack when they don't one-shot something, but they do like if it's on, I don't know, like a Parasect or my Parasect's the only one with Leech Life, but it's I'm 2-shotting stuff, I'm 3-shotting it, I'm putting it to sleep, and then I'm killing them with it and healing myself up, and it's pretty great. It's just like the play pattern of that attack on Parasect is fine. You take a hit because you're slow, and then you put them to sleep, or you paralyze them, and then you just Leech Life yourself back up to full. It's surprisingly playable. Doppelgang XXX for green and a blue sorcery. For each of X target permanents, create X tokens that are copies of that permanent. So if I pay 3 blue and a green, targeting 1 permanent, I get 1 token that's a copy of that permanent. If I pay 6 colorless, a blue and a green, and I target an island and a forest, I get 2 islands and 2 forests. You get what I mean? For each of these targeted permanents, I make X tokens. I mean, 5 mana, just make a copy of something's great. Scaling up to 8 is also pretty strong. This card doesn't read super well, but it's one of these cards where it doesn't read super well because they use the language that is they use language intertwined with the rules of the game, right? Like if describing it as like 5 mana, I want that island, I get 1 island. 8 mana, I want that forest and that island. So I picked 2 things, so I'm getting 2 copies of each of those things. Capiche? Cool card. Giving big, like, mass manipulation vibes. Infinitely worse, though. Commander card. But kind of cool. Looney Clown back for the 5th month. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Well, thanks for being here. It's great to have you. And then, obviously, this card is absurd in Commander with all the doubling seasons and copying the, you know, copies. Yo, dog. Copy the copy. Drag the Canal. Blue and a black. For an instant, you create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. And if a creature token died this turn, you gain 2 life, surveil 2, and investigate. I don't entirely like. It's very weird. It makes sense in a way where, like, you make a 2/2 that can then block. Like, the strength of these cards, these instant speed make creatures, is that you get to subvert expectations and surprise your opponent, right? Like, you get to ambush viper them. Chances are, though, nothing has died yet when you ambush viper, and then you just trade with their creature, which is actually fine. 2 mana, kill your creature, great. Occasionally 2 mana, eat their creature, that's also just fine. Where this card really excels is your opponent kills your creature, your blocker, in pre-combat main, and then thinking the path is clear, they slam, and then you get to drag the canal and make a 2/2, and then gain 2 life and surveil 2, and it replaces itself with investigate. Or you play this card in addition to a kill spell, where you kill the thing, then you play this, and then you get to crack the clue, and it effectively just pays for itself, and it's a very big kicker kind of thing. It's an interesting Magic card. I don't think it does enough for Highlander, but for whatchamacallit, for Gladiator, I don't hate it. Gladiator, I don't hate it, but where am I playing this? Am I actually playing this in, like, Reanimator? I don't think so. Like, maybe blue black, like Tempo, can play this card. But let me put it this way. I'm not excited if I have to use a wild card for this, but if I open this in draft or in packs or whatever, and then I have it in my collection, I'll probably give it a shot in blue black. Kind of a funny way of putting it, but that's probably the most accurate relaying of my feelings towards that card. Etrata, Deadly Fugitive. 1 blue and a black for a 1/4 legendary vampire assassin with Death Touch. And face down creatures you control have pay 2 blue and a black. Turn this creature face up. If you can't exile it, then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Whenever an assassin you control deals combat damage to an opponent, cloak the top card of that player's library. If you don't know what cloak is, congratulations, you're about to find out. This is the first time they're telling us on these cards so far, and they're not even giving us reminder text. Disguise is morph. Cloak is manifest. That's it. Disguise is morph with ward 2, and cloak is manifest with ward 2. Yeah, this card's not playable. I mean, a 3 mana 1/4 Death Touch that gets to like hit your opponents and then make 2/2s is kind of appealing. We got a card that was similar to this in Capenna that I was kind of high on that never saw play. Like, making a 2/2 with a ward 2 is kind of nice, and then also just having this extra ability of like, oh, maybe I do want to cast this. But this is what the fuck was that card called? Diabolist? Maestro's Diabolist? Maestro's Diabolist. Yeah, 4 mana, 1/4 Death Touch haste when it attacks. If you don't control a devil, you make a 1/1 devil with ping. I mean, different cards, I guess, but similar in the sense of they have a big booty, they have Death Touch, and they can make it additional creature tokens. And maybe they'll be similar in that they'll neither of them will see play. 4 toughness though. I mean, it doesn't die to burn. I'm willing to give this card a shot. Similarly, like the other card, I don't want to use a wild card on this, but if I have this card opened, I'll give this a shot in Gladiator. It's got enough good going for it, you know? Yeah, I'll give it a shot. This also is kind of suffering from Commander Syndrome, where like, you look at this card and you like, anytime you see a legendary creature, you're going to assume it's better than it actually is. But I like this card. It's also just got phenomenal Livia Prima art. And, you know, that just gives us some extra points there. Gleaming Gear Drake. Blue and a red for a 1/1 artifact creature. It's a Drake with flying, and when it ETBs, investigate. Whenever you sack an artifact, you put a 1/1 counter on Gleaming Gear Drake. This one's pretty cool. It's pretty good. I imagine it'll see play in the creature-based blue-red and blue-red X artifact decks in both Highlander and Gladiator. It makes 2 artifacts. It grows bigger for you playing the game, sacrificing baubles, treasure tokens, just sacrificing other artifacts to Thopter Foundry and KCI. It draws a card. So like if it's a 4 mana 2/2 that draws a card, that's pretty hot. Like, this is great. This card's great. It's so flexible. Does a whole bunch of stuff. Flexible in how you sequence it and take advantage of it. Uzoni. Center of the Web. 4 black and a green for a 5/4 legendary elf detective with menace. And whenever Uzoni enters the battlefield or attacks, you may collect evidence 4. If you do, you make 2/1 black and green spider tokens with menace and reach. Sacrifice 4 tokens, surveil 2, then draw 2 cards and gain 2 life. This one's kind of weird. I'm just going to say not playable because it's a 6 mana card that just dies to Molten Impact, which is pretty not great. ETBing and making a bunch of bodies is kind of cool. This card just feels like a not great Ishkana. You know, obviously this card can draw additional cards and can also just sack other clues. But in the realm of big Golgari card that makes a bunch of bodies, I think there are just better options, and those options don't already see that much play. Also, very cool setup. Kind of looks like the Dimir symbol, huh? Very cool. Judith Carnage Connoisseur. 3 black and a red for a 3/4 legendary creature human shaman. That has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. That creature gains Death Touch and Lifelink. And create a 2/2 red imp creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Makes a very large imp. Excuse me. I love Judith. Obviously, this artwork is incredible. Unfortunately, this Judith is not playable. It's a cool commander card, I guess. It's very expensive, has no immediate ETB. I kind of wish this wasn't on Judith, you know? I've got conflicting feelings. I saw Ash was complaining about this card, Ash Lizzle, on Twitter, because Ash Lizzle loves Judith. Similar Judith fan as I am. And while this does have, like, while there is precedence for Rakdos doing this kind of thing, with Pestilent Spirit. It does feel, actually, is Pestilent Spirit even Rakdos? Pestilent Spirit might be Orzhov. But like, there are black cards that can give, there's exactly one black card that can do that. Yeah, I don't know. This isn't like a Judith card for Judith fans that want more aristocrat stuff. No, I know it's mono black, but mono black cards can be, like, monocolored cards can be tagged with other guilds, right? Yeah, it's, I don't give, this doesn't give a huge amount of Rakdos vibes. I'm not as passionate as Ash was surrounding this card. But yeah, this doesn't deliver to me, like the card text itself doesn't deliver what I, as a Judith fan, was necessarily expecting or hoping to get out of this card. I don't think this is Rakdos. I think this has a lot of shades of Rakdos. I'm not saying that this is just like flat, not Rakdos, does nothing that's Rakdos related, because it does. Just, it doesn't scream Rakdos, and it doesn't really pay, it doesn't really play into like the kind of effects that may have drawn people to the original Judith itself, right? And I think that's fair. Magic players are in a very weird spot. I mean, earlier today, I even, you know, spoke with absolutes of like, don't do this, do this. I wish more people would do this and not this. But like, yeah, I kind of just wish that, sorry. And in addition to that, the whole, like, I like that Ravnica's going away from the guilds and doing guild stuff and all that. But I kind of, this one doesn't deliver for me, you know? It's like, I think that you can get away. Cards don't have to necessarily be direct callouts to previous versions. They don't necessarily have to do the exact same thing. Judith does, in a way, have the whole aristocrats kind of theme of you make this imp token, and when this imp dies, it domes people out. But it's just not something that I am super excited about, you know? I saw the art for Judith a long time ago, like a lot of other people did. I was stoked. I was excited, was thinking, God, I hope they make her into another aristocrats card. And then she wasn't. And I think that's reasonable to be disappointed of like, okay, well, that kind of stinks, you know? Yeah. Much like every other card in the set, I guess I could just say cool commander card. I guess what I'm saying, maybe tying into my first little point there, is that I would be cooler with people on Magic the Gathering Twitter losing their fucking minds over something that they are passionate about and individually involved in, instead of things that have little to no impact on their lives, and instead are just things that they are repeating because they saw somebody else get mad about it. You know? Where it's like, I would rather have, you know, people that are like if you had like Kaya Fangirl 69 being like, I can't believe they did this to Kaya. I was really hoping that she would do this and this, or be bigger, or have this ability. Like, I just want it, you know, I wasn't expecting it to be exactly like that, but I would have liked it to be like this. That kind of sucks. I wish they did more, whatever, right? Like, that, I would rather have that than somebody being like, this is unbelievable. I saw a retweet of another person complaining about this one thing that will impact them directly, which is indeed shitty, but it's like so far removed from the emotion that drives the first person that it's just more noise and not even like amplification of like an issue. Like, it's not like oh, if I retweet or join in on this, I'm going to provide something new or provide more reach for this really big issue that impacts us all. It's very weird. Anyways, Kaya Spirit's Justice. 2 white and a black for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Kaya that says whenever one or more creatures you control and or creature cards in your graveyard are put into exile, you may choose a creature card from among them. Until end of turn, target token you control becomes a copy of it, except it has flying. +2, surveil 2, then exile a card from your graveyard. +1, make a 1/1 spirit token. -2, exile target creature you control. For each other player, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. I think this is bad. I kind of... Now, I'm no Kaya fan _69. But I do kind of miss older Kaya cards. Like, they knocked it out of the park with the original Kaya, in my opinion. I became an immediate Kaya fan from not just her design being fucking incredible, but the conspiracy card, right? Like this Kaya conspiracy card was just so cool. She's a fucking ghost assassin and has some blink abilities, some draining, some like this card just does everything. It's so cool. It's unique in how you play it. It's great. And as we got more Kaya cards, we've started to kind of dip into like, I love that she's everywhere in the story, right? Even like this Orzhov Kaya, I like. It's another kind of spin to what her whole shtick is. But I don't know. This Kaya, even this one is just kind of like, I like the design. Not like I like a part of this design, but it's just not. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. Doesn't do it for me. I don't think you have to do that much to make Kaya extremely cool. And like, yeah, they've kind of pushed her into doing stuff with tokens and exile. And like, I guess that's kind of a hard thing to get around. This Kaya actually, the more that I think about it, I'm okay with this Kaya. Maybe it's just the last couple of ones. Like Geist Hunter, Intangible Slayer, into Spirit's Justice. This all feels a little over the place. Not to say characters can not change, and I'm very certain that Kaya as a character has changed quite a bit. It doesn't deliver, you know? Maybe it's because there are so many of them that are so rapidly like changing. It's just, it feels wild that such a cool character that is a ghost assassin, I mean, this is the same thing. Geist Hunter, like Orzhov Usurper, Bane of the Dead, like all, like these, just, this is the hardest shit I've ever read. And then it just kind of, it's just as a card. I don't know. Yeah, this seems like a planeswalker that sure needs a lot of additional help for it to do anything. At a relatively low loyalty. I mean, it goes up to 5, which is a pretty high loyalty, but going up to 5, it doesn't like do anything unless you already have something built to the board. So, yeah. She does everything herself. That's so much. My 4 mana, 3 loyalty planeswalker that makes a 1/1. That's my turn. I don't get to take advantage of the other stuff. Like it's not for me. Not for me. Don't think it'll show up, which is unfortunate. Unfort. Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. 2 green and a blue for a 3/4 legendary human fairy detective with flying and vigilance. Whenever Kellen attacks, destroy up to one target artifact. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. And then has Tail the Suspect for green and a blue. Sorcery. You investigate. You can play an additional land this turn. It's not quite Growth Spiral. It's not even Explore. But it is worth mentioning. So I know that people are gonna poo-poo on this card. But I don't know. People tend to undervalue adventure cards in the first place. If I'm a deck that just wants to play as many explores as possible, getting an explore that I can effectively flash back to make a 3/4 flyer vigilance, that if I just happen to have other artifacts kicking around, I can draw cards. If my opponent has artifacts, I could just kill them. Like, that's kind of nice. Like, I think people are looking too much at like this and this and this, or sorry, that it's a legend. Like, yeah, this is explore, and then if I'm doing nothing with my mana, I get a 3/4 flying vigilance card. It's an explore that becomes a threat in a deck that might want to just take infinite turns and just needs a way of killing your opponent to do it. So yeah, I think this card is not that bad. It's narrow in where it shows up, but it's able to do something that the deck wants to have access to. A lot of it, right? The decks that want explorers tend to want every explorer they can get their hands on. Then the decks that also want explorers tend to lack ways of interacting with the board or killing the opponent in a very like in a steady kind of fashion. They tend to do it either not at all or in big spikes, and this kind of just lets you actually play Magic the Gathering. So yeah, I don't hate this card. Crawl Whipcracker. Black and a green for a 3/2 black and a green for a 3/2 insect assassin with reach, and when it ETBs, you destroy target token an opponent controls. I mean, a 3 mana for a 3/2 reach is nothing to snuff at. And blowing up a token is kind of interesting. It can blow up the Boo token. It can obviously get somebody's food or someone's clues. A Saga token. Yeah, I think this card will see play. It's funny because this is just like better in Highlander, even though it's just like it's just a 2 mana 3/2. But yeah, this card's pretty good. I imagine we'll see play in both Gladiator and Highlander. Highlander, it hits better things, and so it feels like you are trading up in terms of mana and quality a lot more often. Kylox Visionary Inventor. 5 blue and a red for a 4/4 legendary creature via Shino Artificer with Menace, Ward 2, and Haste. Whenever Kylox attacks, you sacrifice any number of other creatures. Then you exile the top X cards of your library, where X is their total power. You may cast any number of instants and sorcery cards from among the exiled cards without paying their mana costs. Okay. That's a lot to read. This is a 7 mana card. This is a 7 mana 4/4. I obviously not Highlander or Gladiator playable. Commander, it's kind of neat. You know where I like this card? Blue red, make a bunch of clones. Like blue red, bunch of clone effects. Like I play a bunch of instants and sorceries that make clones of my opponent's cards. That's what I mean. They'll like create a token that's a copy of this. Is you just like create a token of that, attack, sacrifice their cloned creature, and then just like, yeah, or active treasons and quasi-duplicates, basically. Without playing that many creatures of your own. I think is pretty hot. That's pretty cool. I think for a we are loving a blue legend with clones. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. It's a card where, like, I think I like Brutaclad better for 7 dwarves, because I have a Brutaclad 7 dwarves deck that I really like. But I think this might be a pretty interesting spin on that too. It's very expensive, but it means I get to, like, kind of lay off the artifact theme a bit. Interesting. Lightning Helix is back. Meddling Youths is kind of funny. It's just a Scooby-Doo reference. Unfortunately, there's no dog. Kind of wish there was a dog in this artwork. I'm not going to talk about this as a card. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you investigate. Get it? Because they make a clue. But I do wish there was, yeah, the art needed a dog and an ascot. Needs a dog and an ascot. The Lightning Helix art? It's pretty good art. I still think I prefer the original one, personally. But it's pretty good art. Eli Manaya. Eli Manaya. What else have you done? This is a style of art that they've been kind of using a lot more, which is kind of neat. It gives more visual diversity. Oh yeah, Get Lost. Get Lost and Hexgold Slash. Rise of the Eldrazi. Cool. Melik. Reforged Researcher. It's weird to be able to look at Melik's face. 3 blue and a red for a legendary weird detective. Melik's power and toughness are each equal to twice the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. And the first instant or sorcery you cast each turn costs 3 less to cast. Cool, I guess. Yeah, it's one of the pre-release cards, so you can't actually play it in your deck. I wonder if this is going to be on Arena. I mean, it's not going to be playable in Gladiator, but I wonder if it's going to Arena. This is just, 3 is a lot of a reduction. This is kind of a weird card because I think that it just, like, reinforces really shitty play patterns of, like, this card is so evidently just, like, the best with time walks. It's standard legal. Wait. So you get this card in your kit. This is a card you can get in your pre-release kit? Or is it the pre-release promo? Okay, I opened this card. It's in the kit plus the promo. I wish they'd be more clear. Yeah, it's like the Kamigawa Legends. Okay, that makes sense. Can't play it in your kit. You just get it and it's legal and standard. Sure. Yeah, I know you can't play it in your kit. As probably the only person in this chat that has opened one of these kits yet. That I get. That I get. I just wasn't sure if it was a if it was like Commander legal or if it was doing the Kamigawa thing again, which is weird because that's such a large gap between doing it and doing it again. Yeah, sure, why not? No More Lies. White and a blue instant counter a spell unless they pay 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead. This card's broken. This card's broken. It's great. It's really fucking good. Broken sounds like an exaggeration, but I don't think people understand just how messed up Mana Leak is. And yeah, obviously the white cost it makes it a little more difficult to play, which is a good thing. That's a pretty good thing. The exile is kind of huge. Pitches to Solitude, which is great. Very, very excited to play this card in Canadian Highlander. Yeah. Very excited. There's not much to talk about. It's like likely the best card in the set. At least so far. Ooh. Private Eye, 1 white and a blue for a 3/3 homunculus detective. Other detectives you control get +1/+1. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked this turn. Yep. It's a vase, all right. On the job. Good job. Good job, Private Eye. Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. 4 black and a red for a 3/3 flying trampled demon. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. This is like born too late to travel the world, born too early to travel the universe kind of card, where it's like it's too big to cast for retail, too small to reanimate. Is that you or the dog? Yeah, if it wasn't a May, then we're you know talking. And we're talking here. But yeah, it's I don't think it's weird to say. I don't think it does enough. Like maybe the fact that it's like a 6-mana 6/6 that just draws you 2 cards, potentially, hopefully. We have Inferno Titan. We have Grave Titan. We have Gristlebrand. Let's do better. None of these cards are playable. Teysa is. Teysa, Opulent Oligarch. 1 white and a black for a 2/3 legendary human advisor with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, investigate for each opponent who lost life this turn. And whenever a clue you control is put into a graveyard from play, create a 1/1 white and black spirit token with flying. This ability only triggers once each turn. It's nice that it can trigger on your opponent's turn. That's very cool. It's pretty cheap. Being able to hit them with your 2-drop, play Teysa, immediately investigate. And then being able to, you don't exactly want to block Teysa. Dies to a variety of things, but it does enough good. I don't think it's actually going to see much play. I think it's just below the threshold. It can really get going though. Like it's nice. It's a card that is like relevant on turn 3 and then also just can slowly take over the game by itself, which I like. So maybe that gives it some extra points. If this card ends up in your deck, it's going to be card like 95 to 100, basically. 3/3 or 2/4 would have been better. I mean, those would have been larger stats, yeah. Tolsimir, Midnight's Light. 2 green, white for a 3/2 elf scout with lifelink. When Tolsimir enters the battlefield, you create Voya Fenstalker, a legendary 5/5 green and white wolf creature token with trample. Whenever a wolf you control attacks, if Tolsimir attacked this turn, target creature an opponent controls blocks that wolf this combat if able. So this is 5 mana for 8/7 stats across 2 bodies, some of it trampling, some of it lifelinking. And if you're able to attack with that wolf, you can make blocks miserable. Miserable for your opponents. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It is all about combat, which at least the other Tulsimir, the War of the Spark Tulsimir, you know, I was actually just going to mention Tulsi and the pups. I was just thinking that the 5-mana War of the Spark Tulsimir is a good utility creature because it just hits the table, makes a thing, and kills the other thing. This Tulsimir, I'm a little like, it's just a big idiot, which is cool, and might actually just be better for a commander deck, if I must say so myself, Alexander the Fine. It's a lot. That's a lot of power and toughness. It's a lot of power and toughness. It's a 5-drop. It's probably not seeing play, but this is a lot. God forbid you have to play against it in limited, huh? Tomic, Wielder of the Law, and I'm going to say it first. He has affinity for one Planeswalker because there's one Planeswalker he's in love with. Nobody gets to say it in chat. Haha. 1 white and a black for a 2/4 legendary creature, Human Advisor. Affinity for Planeswalker. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each Planeswalker you control. It has flying and vigilance. And whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or Planeswalkers you control, that opponent loses 3 life and you draw a card. 2/4 flying vigilance is big. We talked about it with the Wojek investigator, the angel. That's just like a pretty annoying stat line. And then being able to like punish your opponent for actually just like crunching in with a big idiot and something else is pretty nice. Helps you race. I just don't know. I don't know if it's worthwhile to play. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's a big idiot. It's a human. That gives it a little extra juice. Again, this much like Tesa, this feels like it would be card like 95 to 100. It's not an embarrassing card to lose to or to include in, you know, the deck. But it kills people dead. It's not an embarrassing card to lose to, and it can kill people dead. But, you know, it's probably not the most optimal thing to play. Tristani 3 Whispers. Green, Selesnya hybrid, and white for a 4/4 Dryad. Pay 1 and a green, target creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. Pay a hybrid Selesnya, target creature gains Vigilance until end of turn. Pay 2 and a white, target creature gains Double Strike until end of turn. I'd play this in green-white big idiots. Like, I'm just sitting here waiting to cast Loxodon Smiter. I love a good Loxodon Smiter. I love a bad Loxodon Smiter. Goes with my Watch Wolf. Like, yeah. I'll play Green-White Little Kid. I'll play Green-White Little Kid. I'll even play this card in Canlander and just get Caracas to death. This card's fine. Like, it's easy to cast. Kinda. And giving, like, the ability to give anything Death Touch or Double Strike is so powerful. Vigilance is also just, like, not that bad. Especially if you have Mana Dorks, then it lets you pressure with some of your Mana Dorks a little easier. Like, it just goes even. That's kind of neat. Garrick, Predator of Scrubs. Welcome back for the 57th month. Murder? Murder? Where? I can't see. Thank you for the 57 months. That's a long ass time. Well, I'm not going to talk about that card because I don't want to spoil a joke on the PPR. Vanifar Evolved Enigma. God, I love this artwork. Holy shit. This is so beautiful. 2 green and a blue for a 3/4 legendary Elf Ooze Wizard. Beginning of combat on your turn, you choose 1. You cloak a card from your hand, so you put it into play face down as a 2/2 with Ward 2. You can turn it face up at any time for its mana cost if it's a creature. Or if it has a disguise or a morph cost, you can flip it up. Or you get to put a 1/1 counter on each colorless creature you control. Yeah, I mean, if you were a Vannifar fan, this isn't the most Vannifar-ish card. Same thing, like, again, if you're Vannifar fan _420 and this is not what you were hoping for, my condolences. I get you. I don't think this is particularly an interesting Magic card. I'm going to level with you. Don't think it's a particularly interesting Magic card. It's kind of funny that you can just like sneak a Phyrexian Dreadnought into play, though. That said, have you seen this artwork? Have you looked at that dress? The colors? The like silvery outline of all their outfits? With like the lanterns in the background? Good God, Lemon. This card, I mean, look at this card. Gonna need to grab myself a foil of this. Yeah, she's got a jellyfish dress. It's so pretty. It would make an amazing cosplay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Voya Jaws of the Conclave. 2 red, green, and a white for a 5/5 legendary wolf with vigilance, trample, and ward 3. Whenever Voya Jaws of the Conclave attacks, put X 1/1 counters on each creature you control where X is the number of elves you control, and draw a card for each wolf you control. This card is messed up. This card is so big. This card might even be fine in like Naya midrange or Naya monsters in Gladiator. It's hard to kill. It's got a big body. Trample and Vigilance is messed up. And whenever it attacks, the floor is you draw a card. And you're a deck that's likely going to have elves, right? You're likely going to have elves in your deck because you're a green midrange deck. And it puts them on each creature. It's not even put them on the elves. So if I have like a Paradise Druid and this attacks, I buff my entire team and I draw a card. And now I have a 6/6 Vigilance, Trample, Ward 3. That's fucked. That is a lot. This card is so cool. I'm a big fan of this card. Big fan of this card. And War Leader's Call. Great art. 1 red and a white enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yeah, this card is going to be... God bless the low price of normal rares in Magic the Gathering sets. If this card came out like a decade ago, this would have been like a... Well, maybe not a decade ago because Commander wasn't as big. But like, this is like a $20 rare, right? I mean, maybe a decade ago, just casual play. Like this card is just really strong and appealing to a variety of players. Casual players and Commander players like this because it's an Anthem and it's an Impact Tremors and it's on a single card. And it has an Angel in the artwork. The sequel to Angel in the Outfield. And then... Secondly, competitive players like this because it fucking just kills your opponent. This is just like such a reasonable card to play in aggressive decks in Gladiator because one of the downsides is that this is not a creature and so it's a little awkward with sequencing, right? You want to play out enough creatures so that you can actually pressure your opponent, build to the board to make this card worthwhile to play. But you also don't want to overextend. You don't want to play too much into the board so that you just get got with like a Wrath or a board wipe. And then when you play this card afterwards, like if you find a weird timing slot to play this card, either after a Wrath or like, you're like, I developed 2 creatures to the board. I need to keep up pressure. But I don't want to develop to the board further. You'll just throw this in. And then you'll be like, if I had played a creature, then that would have been plus like 4 damage or whatever. But the impact tremors, excuse me, helps kind of mitigate that a little bit, especially if you play this with haste creatures, then it doesn't matter. This card rules. Like, I think this card is absolutely Gladiator playable. What's the War Leader's Call sound like? Where have all the young men gone, and where are all the gods? Where's the street was hawk? Oh. Oh God, I almost choked on that tea, and I spilled some on my shirt. Great. Yeah, it sounds like Bonnie Tyler. Magnetic Snuffler. 5 mana 4/4. When it ETBs, return target equipment from your graveyard to play attached to the Snuffler. And whenever you sacrifice an artifact, you put a counter on the Snuffler. This card's great. I don't think it's playable. I mean, Commander, obviously. But look at it. It's a cute little anteater. It's very goofy. I'm a big fan of this card. Also, Snuffler. Who doesn't love the word Snuffler? Sanitation Automaton. It's a vacuum. I am once again bursting with discarded theories. Same also. This is just kind of a cute little guy. That's it. I'm not going to talk about all the lands. Oh, it's all the basics, that's why. Branch of Vitu Ghazi. It's a land, taps for a colorless, has Disguise 3, and when Branch of the Vitu Ghazi is turn face up, you add 2 mana of any one color until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. It's Zoetic Caverns, which is another land with morph. This one is a bit better. Jesus. This one's a bit better. The cost of inclusion in a monocolored deck might be low enough that like a monocolored aggressive or mid-range deck could get away with playing this, but that is like only true for maybe like 5 months. Like you're bound to get something better. But it is kind of cool that you can turn, you know, a land into a 2/2 morph, or a 2/2 ward 2, basically. There's a cycle here. There's a cycle of dual lands. There's a whole bunch of them, all allied and enemy duels that have the land types. So they add, you know, the 2 colors of mana. They all need to be tapped. And when they ETB, you surveil 1. These cards are not going to be Canadian Highlander playable. I'm shocked that people are even talking about these cards in format like... I saw people talking about these cards in Modern, which is just like not happening. I could see maybe the blue-black one being played in... I could see the blue-black one being played in Canlander because it's a fetchable land that works with World Gorger combo, which is kind of neat. But for Gladiator, absolutely. Like, just giving even though they are mostly just like, you know, they're temples in a way. They are tutorable temples. They are fetch landable temples. And I think that's interesting. It's just nice having additional lands in your deck that you can fetch for, right? Especially if you're playing like 3 or more shock or 3 or more fetches, that's just kind of nice. It's just nice to have. 3-color decks might not play all of them. I imagine 3-color decks might play one of them in the color combo that is like their anchoring duo. But yeah, they are also, I mean, more fetchable dual lands with land types is pretty good for cards like Mystic Sanctuary and friends. So yeah, they're worth having. Library Witch K, welcome back for the 17th month. Glad to have you. Good to see him. How you doing? How you been? Thank you for all the support. I also love their names. Commercial District, Elegant Parlor, Hedge Maze, Lush Portico, Meticulous Archive, Raucous Theater, Shadowy Backstreet, Thundering Falls, Undercity Sewers, Underground Mortuary. Like, these are really good names. Knocked it out of the park with these names. I guess I gotta talk about this card. Escape Tunnel. It's a land. Tap to sack and search your library for a basic land. Put it into play. Tap. Tap. Sack. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. It's a strictly better Terramorphic Expanse. That's it. Yeah, they did it. I can't believe they did it. And Evolving Wilds, I guess. And it has a generic enough name that they can reprint it too. Very cool. Very cool. Oh, this card's kind of interesting. Public Thoroughfare. It enters the battlefield tapped. And when it enters the battlefield tapped, sacrifice it unless you tap an untapped artifact or land you control. Tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is Guild, what is it? Guild Promenade / Rupture Spires / there's like one more. But also just tapping your clue token. It's kind of nice. Transguild Promenade, that's what it was. What did I say? Rupture Spires, the Alara one. Tap your food token. Yeah. Is the trans... Oh, Gateway Plaza. That's the other one. But Gateway Plaza might be a gate. I believe it is a gate. Yeah. Kind of a cool card. Kind of a cool card. Don't think it's playable, but kind of a cool card. This one is really fucking cool. Scene of the Crime. It's an artifact land. And it's a clue. It enters the battlefield tapped. You tap to add a colorless mana. You tap to tap an untapped creature you control and add 1 mana of any color. You can pay 2 generic to sack it and draw a card. Wait. That's kind of hot. It's a land that puts itself into the graveyard. Okay, so let's get it out of the way. It comes into play tapped. That part's not great. That part's not great. It is an artifact land, which is kind of busted. It's an artifact land that can put itself into the graveyard, which is kind of busted. And it can do so without tapping. I'm likely going to try this in a couple of different decks in Canadian Highlander. But obviously a land entering the battlefield tapped in the decks that want this kind of card is a big downside. But it is a artifact that is it's an artifact land that is tutorable from crop rotation that draws a card and puts itself in the graveyard, which is kind of fucked up. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool and good. And then yeah, any like Gladiator artifact deck is going to be pretty excited to play this kind of card. Okay, that's it for the main set so far. I believe now we can move on to the Commander products, of which they've only spoiled the face commanders. Which we could talk about. They're not legal in Gladiator. They're legal in Canadian Highlander. And obviously Commander. I gotta tell you, you're going to want to watch the Elder Dragon Social Club that comes out with this set. Because I was like a kid in a candy shop. I'll talk about the other cards that got spoiled too. Yeah, I'll talk about the other cards. Koust, Eyes of the Glade. Red and a white, hybrid mana and a green for a 2/2 legendary Dryad Detective. Whenever a creature you control that was turned face up this turn deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then tap. Turn target face down attacking creature you control face up. Very cool Magic card. I adore this card because I got a soft spot for Morph, and I got a soft spot for what appears to be some little like rabbit squirrel. And I like drawing cards. It's great. Card's great. Really cool deck idea here. We have Mirko, Obsessive Theorist. 1 blue black for a flying vigilance 1/3 vampire detective that says whenever you surveil, put a 1/1 counter on Mirko. And at the beginning of your end step, you may return target creature card with power less than Mirko's from your graveyard to play with a finality counter on it. So if you ignore this middle line of text of whenever you surveil, do a thing, 3-mana 1/3 flying vigilance that just returns certain creatures from your graveyard to play is kind of hot. I don't think it's Scanlander playable, but this is a very interesting line of text, especially because there are just creatures that are 0/0s that you can return things. That you can cheat them into play is what I mean. Excuse me. Like, what are we talking about here? Power equal 0. Counter. Yeah, there are just so many cards that you could just return to play that'll be gigantic. It's kind of funny because this obviously works with modular creatures, but the finality counter means that if it would die, you exile it, which makes finality counter or makes modular creatures not the most appealing card to play with this. This card's really cool. It's a really cool build around for Commander. I might actually try to put together a Mirko deck because like you could just bring Mirko Clockwork stuff would be really funny. Like Mirko returning Clockwork Dragon or like Clockwork was it Clockwork Beast? Is pretty funny. Morska Undersea Sleuth. Green, white, and a blue for a 2/3 Vidalcan Fish Detective. You have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, you investigate. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, put 2 1/1 counters on Morska. So, this card's really strong. It's like very easy to get this card killing your opponents like immediately. Obviously, having a Reliquary Tower in your command zone is also very appealing for Commander. But I gotta say something. Why is this not a Merfolk? I know that this is a thing that a lot of people have mentioned. People were excited of this card being a Merfolk. Vidalcan Fish. This looks exactly like a This looks exactly like the Merfolk in Ravnica. Like this. I don't know, it looks pretty similar to me. There are other ones. I just pulled Ravnica Allegiance. But there's other ones. I didn't even go back to RTR. Haven't checked that yet. I mean, I understand why this card with this text box is not a Merfolk. Because if they made a Bant Merfolk commander for the first time since Tuvasa, which doesn't count because, well, actually, I guess that's important. The first time they made a Bant Merfolk legend it had nothing to do with merfolk. And a lot of people got really upset. They probably didn't want to do that again. So this is a Videlkin fish detective. That said, this is very odd artwork to use for this card. Like, I guess you see the Videlkin features in here. How many fingers do Videlkin have on other planes? I forget what the Videlkin have a certain amount of, whatchamacallit? 6 on Kaladesh, that's what it was. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you made this a legendary merfolk, the most annoying people on the planet would be really upset at you, and they would be very loud, and that would stink. So I guess doing this, it's a little, the artwork is a little too, like, I don't know. I feel like you use this artwork somewhere else. Look, I'm not an art director. I'm just saying, if you covered up this card's text box and you asked me what creature type this card is, I'm telling you a merfolk. And adding counters to merfolk, that's a merfolk thing. A little weird. But again, hey, you know what? Not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. Nelly Borka, Impulsive Accuser. 2 red and a white for a 2/4 human detective legend with vigilance. Remember Bell Borka? Whenever Nelly Borka, Impulsive Accuser, attacks, suspect target creature, then goad all suspected creatures. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deals combat damage to one or more of your opponents, you and the controller of those creatures each draw a card. This card rules. This card abso-fucking-lutely rules. It is so cool. This card is great. This card is phenomenal. Yeah. Cool commander card. Really cool commander card. Really interesting take on Boros too. Big fan. I guess there are a couple cards from the Ravnica Clue. Why is it called Cluedo? What is Cluedo? Is Cluedo different? Wait, Cluedo is the original name for Clue? Oh, it's Cluedo in Britain. Oh. Okay. Gotcha. I gotcha. That's God. It's so funny. I had to dub it down for the Americans. Why did they... Cluedo sounds incredibly British, for starters. Very weird that they would have to change this to Clue. I mean, for all the atrocities that the Brits have committed. And to the world as a whole. This is pretty low on this. But it's so funny. It's Cluedo. Name 3 atrocities? Sure thing. Doctor Who. Love Actually. And then... Warhammer. Great. Thank you, Pywo. Hennes, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Hey, we don't talk shit about Jaffa cakes or beans on toast. Those are pretty tasty. Downton Abbey? No, I love Downton Abbey. I need to rewatch Downton Abbey, actually. Let's back up on DW. DW. Dove Waxually? What's Dove Waxually? Oh, Doctor Whom? I've never heard anybody like shorthand it to DW. No. I think Doctor Who deserves all the shit it gets, but that's okay. As a Doctor Who enjoyer myself, I think it deserves all... if anything, it deserves even more crap, but that's okay. Talking shit over Doctor Who? No, I like Doctor Who. I enjoy Doctor Who, and I didn't even watch it when I was a kid. Like, I'm not even, it's not like nostalgia or, you know, for some, like, you know, really lonely reason. I watched it recently and I enjoyed it. So I like Doctor Who. But it is slop a lot of the time. And that's a part of its charm. It's like Star Wars. It's great slop. And sometimes it can have some cool, powerful, and touching moments. But it's mostly slop. And that's okay. That's enjoyable. That rules. Scotch eggs? You can't eat eggs anymore. Jesus. It's okay to like things that aren't great. Like, it's okay to like things that might not hit this like weird threshold of quality or like resistance to criticism. And it's okay to like those unironically or without creating caveats, you know? I mean, you can look at something and be like, damn, this is kind of poorly put together, but fuck me if it isn't entertaining, right? You could just be like, you don't have to be like, you know, it's not great, but there's this moment and this happens and this does a thing and here's this. And it's like, okay, well, you could just say like, damn, this is schlock, but I love it. Yeah, like this stream. Lavinia, foil to conspiracy. She could fix me. 1 and then 2 hybrid blue-white for a 2/3 legendary human detective with vigilance. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, investigate. And then tap, add 2 colorless. Activate only during an opponent's turn. It's really cool to get a Lavinia that doesn't just ruin the game, which is pretty nice. This is not a playable card in Canadian Highlander, but it's kind of a cool commander card. Second spell each turn is pretty interesting. Like, you could build like Lavinia Flash, and I think you could make it not shit, especially because there are a lot of white Flash cards that are pretty fun. Yeah, cool card. And then there's like a common. I don't care about that. What are special guests? Oh, these are the cards I can't talk about. All right. In hindsight, I'm not going to talk about the other cards that were added to that were previewed throughout the day. I'm not going to add them today because we're already above 4 hours, and you can hear my voice is destroyed. Right? I'm getting a little hoarse, and I don't know what to name it. Anybody got any names for this pony? Bard in the Yard, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for subscribing in the first place. I mean, that's great. You did miss Lenny. You did miss Lenny. Yeah. I mean, I could show you Lenny. Mulder might not like it, but I could show you Lenny. We could get Lenny in here one last time. This might be a bad idea. Actually, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. Mulder's asleep. She's old. I don't want Mulder to have a heart attack and die. You want to look at Lenny? Lenny's earlier in the VOD. But I'm going to have to call it here because I can't talk anymore. CardKingdom.com sponsor the channel. Use that link to pick up your cards. Mana Trader sponsor the channel. Use that link to rent your cards and that new referral code. And if you want to make a shitload of money for me and the channel and help support us, there's a sponsored stream link there. Download that game. Go through the tutorial. Get rid of it immediately. And that helps me out quite a bit. I will be streaming again tomorrow. In the morning, I'm going to be over at twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun for Chandalar. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to probably do some cube draft or maybe talk about more of the previews. Who knows? But I'm going to call it there. Let me drop kids off somewhere. Hey, Adam's playing a video game. Who wants to go watch Adam play a video game? You do. That's right, you do. You're going to go watch Adam play a video game. And then I'll see y'all tomorrow. Okay, bye, love you. Have a good one.